understand, survive to see another day. The dance of life, the hunter any other prey. No guarantee which of them will succeed. Strong or weak. Rules of nature. And they run when the sun comes up, with our lives on the line. For a while, gotta follow the laws of the wild. With our lives on the line. Out here only the strong survive. Rules of nature. And they run when the sun comes up, with our lives on the line. For a while, gotta follow the laws of the wild. With our lives on the line. Out here only the strong
Around here, we follow the rules of nature, which is that only the strong survive. And, you know, if you're going to be part of this online electronic Serengeti, then you're going to get hunted. You're going to get hunted. And everybody says I sweep for Josh. They say, "Oh, you happen to have a Kiwi Farms account. Does that mean that you're Josh's top guy?" As if everybody who talks about this shit doesn't check Kiwi Farms every other day to get all of their stuff. I'm sick and tired of this bullshit that that all these people are not using Kiwi Farms, because all the information comes from there. And it's not just like it's not just like the Kino Casino A-log people. It's not just the people who hate Josh. It's everybody. It's all from the top on down, whether it be million sub channels like Turkey Tom or whatever. And it's just a website. I don't have to be this guy's like this gunk guard just because I use his website. So we're gonna go through this thread, and this thread is it's not new, as I've now finding out. It's well, you know, there is a thread for him on the site itself, but he keeps it hidden in prospering grounds, which means you have to have an account on the site to see it. There is a cope for that he has put out, and I'm sure it's going to be in this thread because it's kind of it's a cope. It's there's really no other way to put it, but basically his idea is that he can't have a public thread of himself on the site because then it'll mean that everyone litigates all of his decisions, which is just like, again, if you're going to be on the electronic Serengeti, people are going to come at you. That's just the way it is. This website, there's all these like splinters of Kiwi Farms. There's Onion Farms made by Kangol. There's, I guess, this one. I'm fine. I think it's great. I think you should. I miss the times of the internet where there was so many weird little forums. Obviously, you know, some of them are worse than others. There was Skibdi Farms, which was like just straight up like CP Defender owned it. I don't know who owns this really, so don't take this for avowing any of these forums. I'm just saying I like the general idea of people making their own spots that are all different and can develop their own board culture. And one of the reasons I do like Kiwi Farms is because it has maintained a distinct culture on the website, and it's evolved. Like, it's changed over time. And I know that they're going to cover it in this thread because I did look at this thread a little bit, and it has changed obviously from being like focused only on Chris Chan and focused only on specific people to being going through different eras, I guess you'd say. But that is the nature of an organic, primarily psychic community. By psychic, I mean, you know, it's not physical. It's their thought forms and whatnot. You know, I was wrong about some of the stuff I said on the stream when I called in, and I was corrected by Squire when he's like, you know, some of these messages that I thought were when he was like 15 and just being like cringe, were not when he was 15. And we're gonna cover we're gonna go through the whole thing. I'm not gonna leave out anything. So a lot of this is also just like cringe posts of himself. Like the other problem is that all this stuff is like public pretty much. There's some things in here that people had to do a little bit of digging on, but a lot of the like really cringe posts, a lot of the stuff that people have the most issue with are public. And so it's like when you run a forum that's about collecting public statements and then laughing at them, because that's really what it should be about. It should just be that these are, you know, people should be having fun with all of this. This is not like serious. This is not, it's not like a personal vendetta. That's kind of where I get some of my aversion to some of the Josh like mega haters, is some of them really feel like they want to kill this guy, or like there's some kind of conspiracy or whatever. I don't think there's a conspiracy. I think this is just a bunch of retards online talking shit. And, you know, by that same logic, that's also why, like, I think it's worth talking shit about some of the funny stuff that he's done here, too. So we have the Kiwi Farms is effectively an extension of my personality, and no facet of it exists without my approval. Now, there's both a cringe truth and a cringe lie in this statement, but they're both cringe. The cringe truth is that it's true that no facet of it exists without his approval. That's cringe because it really probably shouldn't be all that way. It kind of comes across as like I have projected my identity onto this collective project, which is a website. So that's cringe, but it is true. I mean, he's very hands-on with the website, for good and ill. In some ways it's good, because if you don't, you end up like Lowtax, where the website takes you over, right? It's cringe because it's again, it's like, then you get what we have now, where you can't even use the website without having to either become Josh's top guy or a mega hater, right? The cringe lie here is that the Kiwi Farms is an extension of my personality. That's not true. And we're going to see that in here, because there are fights all the time on the website with him where people disagree with him on all sorts of shit. And that's how it should be. It should be that you have a space where people disagree and fight with each other, and it doesn't even need to be constructive. It's fun. It's just fun. That's the rules of nature. So we have the early life here, 92. So let's keep this in mind. He was born in 92, because it's going to be relevant when we look at some of these messages, so that we understand like what his age is. It's interesting that a lot of this info comes from Zkist, because Zkist was like the forum mega doxer, as in he was the guy who could go through all the records. He was the guy who could find everything, and was pretty much always right. I'm trying to think of any distinct examples where he like straight up did a fail dox, and I don't think there could be. I'm not going to say they don't exist, but he got a reputation for a reason, but there must have been some kind of falling out behind the scenes. There's a message in here I'll find where he says that he's okay with kicking Zkist, even if it means they like lose their main docs guy. And a lot of this comes from the fact that the forum used to be a lot smaller, and it's kind of gone through multiple cullings. So it not only did it used to be a lot smaller, but the times where it has grown, there have been moments where like it gets called either because of the hack in 2019, or there was a period where he actually considered shutting down the website because I think there was some kind of like blackmail threat or something. And every time that happens, it doesn't reset things back to zero, but it does create like a vacuum in which a new community can come in. And you're going to kind of see these phases, because one of the other criticisms people have with Kiwi Farms now is how female-centric it is. I don't really have a problem with that, because it's its own subforum, and it sort of is filling a niche of, I said this in another stream, that there are very few pro-women, or not pro-women, but like women-run anti-trans spaces. And the beauty parlor in Kiwi Farms is one of the rare spots there. The thing is, when you combine that with what was before that, or at least had become by that point a very right-wing male audience who follow these locales, kind of more more for the rules of nature aspect, like I do, there's kind of a culture clash there. And so then you end up with basically, it's like a ghetto where it's like its own community within a community, right? So we got this that he's from Florida. So there's some stuff in here about like a gay phase. And I mean, that's like this classic one, right? Is the Neko Shota shit. What I want to see is, so he's been using, this is the other aspect of this. A lot of like his behavior and the way that he acts can be explained by two things. One, raised by the internet, as in been on forums since you're a kid, and two, single mother. And they both like play into each other, of course. And it leads to an observation that was made in here that I made as well, where he'll like ask questions he doesn't expect. He doesn't want you to actually answer. Very like indirect way of interacting with people until like there's a vent explosion moment and then he bans everyone. Right? So here we have the Blockland shit. The Blockland stuff is, Blockland was basically Roblox before Roblox. And it's kind of funny because they were essentially got to the market before Roblox did, but it didn't really, it didn't blow up the way Roblox has, where it's like one of the biggest games online. Now, the other parallel is Roblox obviously has a very serious child exploitation issue, which seems to have also been a problem on Blockland. So, these are from 2008, 2009, and so he would have been what, 20? So this is where I was wrong, right? Is I thought that most of this Blockland shit, he was literally like 14, right? But if he's born in 1992, then he would have been 20 in December of 2012, right? So let's look where when some of these messages are. So the only thing this is just like edgy shit. I don't care too much about that. This is him complaining about his mom. My dear sweet mother and I are in some sort of war that does not seem to be letting up anytime soon. The other thing is that one of the ways Josh defends himself from the single mother stuff, because I'm sorry, it's just so obvious, like the way he acts is like single mother behavior sometimes, is that he says he was raised by his grandpa, but that is contradicted here by him saying that he is estranged from his grandparents. Now, it could be, and you may say, well, maybe he means on one side and the other. So like he's raised by, let's say, his like maternal grandfather, and then this is talking about his fraternal. The thing is, he also says here he's like had no relationship with his father at all, and that side of the family. So that's, see, it'll say here. So he claims his father left, no contact with his father's family. So we have to, this grandfather we're talking about here is the same one he's talking about here that says he sees him like once a year. I clogged up my toilet, flushed, and ran back to black and white too. In the course of 5 hours of nonstop power abuse, I get up and get some iced tea. I notice my kitchen floor is drenched. Using my ace detective skills, as granted by Detective Conan, past Avatar, I discovered the source, a bowl full of my stuff. It had leaked. Okay, great. So this is in 2000. So here, 2011, he would have been 19 here, and he would have been, this is 3 years before. So, 18, 17, 16. So like, I have more sympathy for like stupid shit in the 2008. I'm just trying to get the timeline here right, because like I said, my impression was that a lot of this was when he was like 14. So we know that the youngest of these messages, he's 16. So, I am a starfish. Harry Potter rules. What the fuck? Where is this? There's plenty of. Okay, it's great. I'm not gonna be a judger because some dumb angsty cunt on the internet forum took advantage of her. So this is like weird, like EGF shit. I hope your child burns to death. You know what's funny is that like, even if you try to cope for this and be like, in here he's, well, it's 2011, so what, he's 19? He still posts like this. So it's like, at least stuff like this where he's like telling people to kill themselves or whatever, this is not like, wasn't like a phase. Let's see. Stealing Neopets accounts. Great. Yeah, he had like a EGF on here. The only thing that turns him on is great. Okay, so it's 16. Again, this feels like edgy teenager shit. So this is the stalking the girl thing. Okay. And just as Squire correctly said, look, this is 2012. So he's literally 20 when he's posting this. Talks about making multiple accounts to talk to himself and how it made a girl think, oh wait, no, this is... Yes, okay. Josh also talks about self-harming by tearing skin off his feet and how he doesn't bathe for weeks at a time. He also mentions, which again, he's 16 here. But this post is, he would have been 20. This is him complaining, I see people as investments, and if they, like, this is very gay, especially at the age of 20. It's just like, it's like Arrested Development, you know? Like, I could see myself thinking this way and posting some of this cringe shit when I was like in middle school. But then what happens is you go to high school and then you're exposed to other people in like more like still low risk but riskier situations, and you start to get a better grasp on what's actually important, right? And I just feel like when you're raised by the internet, like he admits that he was like beyond form since 14. He says he dropped out of, he like did fake high school for 2 years, right? Where you like when I think about education, like I hate teachers, and I think that our teachers, the way they work, like our education system is like destroyed. I have really no sympathy for it. And so then on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, you should like homeschool or whatever. The problem is if you don't have some of the like checkpoints in high school, like your first drink, your first kiss, maybe, obviously premarital sex is bad, but you know, potentially that, like if you don't go through these checkpoints, like this is what happens, right? Is that you're talking like a 16-year-old when you're 20. That's what happens. And the other problem is that even though it's been another 10 years, he still talks a lot like this. And, you know, there's a narrative that is put out that the reason why a lot of the times Josh has problems with the website is there's this, you know, it's censorship, it's political, and some of it is that is true, and that's just like anyone in the sector, right? But part of it is also just, it's very clear that, like, he's hard to work with, and the reason he's hard to work with is because it's like working with a teenager. Talking about he doesn't like the girls, like, again, like, dude, look at this post. My mind is literally blown that it's been over a year. 2 users care about the pony people. And last year I gained my independence, got my first job, got my first girlfriend, dumped my first girlfriend, left that job, got employed online doing something I love, had my mom visit, her boyfriend burned down the house and killed my cat, dropped down from 250 to 200. That's the other thing, is that didn't stay. So this is him talking about self-improvement. In like when he's 20, like so many of these checkpoints are shit you do like junior year of high school when you're like 16. Basically the oldest of these tweets when he, in 2008 when he was 16, are like the way you would talk. Oh my god, that's tough. How he's better than the other users. Well, that's also a thing that's sort of stayed persistent, is this perception that even though you're the ringleader, so you obviously have something in common with the people who use these websites, that you're better than them. And that's like a Lowtax thing too. I have a thing for that's tough. So this is the infamous set of messages. So this is from a private message. Like there's no, like, when was this? This is 8, like, I'm not gonna sweep for this. This is like bad, but I'm just trying to see how old he was when he said this. So this is when he was 16. That's tough. At least it's not when he was 20, but that's pretty bad. It's just so, I just can't imagine being 16 and even knowing what these two words are. Like, think about that. Is you're in what, a sophomore, depending on like your birthday, you're like a sophomore in high school, and this is your primary interaction, and that's gonna like prism the way you treat anybody in real life, and like the way you treat like business partners for the rest of your life. And the reason why is because, you know, this is when I was cringe when I was 16, and this is what the cringe looked like. Dude, when you're cringe and you're 16, it's like going up to a girl and getting rejected. That's like cringe. But, you know, it's like these checkpoints that you go through. I think I want to kill. Okay, this is This is the one Ralph likes to talk about. I want to kill this lady since she has no love. Oh my God. Besides possibly her own parents, and I would rather sit on this computer I am on now for the rest of my life than spend one more loving day with. Oh my God. When was this? How old was he when he posted this? Okay, so. Oh no, this is even worse. Oh no, why did they take this part out? This is worse. Oh, I mean, it's both bad. Okay, so 2007. So when he's 15 here. I mean, at least this is the one when he's 15. It's a little more. I get like you're a teenager and you're like, I hate my mom, but dude, calling your own mom a slut. Like this is. I mean, this is just quintessential why you can't like single motherhood. And a lot of people blame single motherhood on like every time on the women. I don't think that's actually usually true. I think it's like a deadbeat dad phenomenon. I think most women don't want to be single mothers. Unfortunately, we have a lot of media now that celebrates it, which is like the worst thing you can do, right? But I think that 90% of women don't want to be that. But the fact that he blames her, slut who had me at 18, she's the sole reason I'm pro-choice. I mean, I know that there's people on the right who are like pro-choice in a like what race is it type of way, which I disavow. But like being pro-choice so that you wouldn't be born. I mean, it's kind of a 15-year-old thing to say. Stuffy parents abort their kids. She is 33 or something now and is single and haven't having her. I don't think he's using this term correctly. Of course, now that the last of her eggs are being destroyed. Okay. It is kind of crazy to see kind of his turn regarding women. Um, as far as like, you know, Kiwi Farms, like I said, is like a very female oriented. Like there's a female oriented forum, and he talks a lot about sort of the turf type people, the trans or the trans exclusive radical feminists. I don't like the term turf because I think that like saying that you have to be a radical feminist to not believe in the trans metaphysics is it's just pigeonholing the issue. Like there's a way to be not a feminist and to believe in like a symbiotic relationship between men and women and also call out the trans stuff. But like he's very his view on women now is very much in that vein of like the trans exclusive radical feminist stuff. He likes having the female space on Kiwi Farms, which I think is fine. But then you like go back to these posts where like he's blaming his mom, saying he's pro-choice so that he doesn't get born, and talking about like egg carton empty. What this reminds me of is when Shoe on Head was getting shit for not being married despite her age. Josh called that out. And I think he was right to do that because, of course, eventually Shoe on Head did get married and have kids, which is great. Good for her. And so he was right to call that out as being like, guys, like if we're going to work together, if men and women are going to work together here and have like a functioning social system, you can't be like, this is not the sort of pressure you want. This is not the sort of way you want to apply pressure. You want to apply pressure by providing an alternative, like providing a constructive and wholesome alternative, not by like destroying women who are trying to do that and aren't doing it on the schedule that you want. But then you have this where it's like this post, know that the last of her eggs are being, is exactly the kind of post that he would then later criticize. And the fact he doesn't acknowledge it, like, it would be one thing if his narrative was, I used to be this edgy teenager and it talked about women this way, but I learned or whatever. But it's not. She's not poor. That isn't a well, no one marries a woman for her money. It's not the way it works. It's the other way around. And that's not healthy either. I'm just, she has to be stingy out of her 60K yearly paycheck after fee. Yeah. That's the other thing is like, it's like single mother raised and very clearly not, I don't want to say low class household because class is not just a function of money. Class is a function of expectations. Okay. You can be in a household that makes 60K a year or even less than that, 30K a year, and be in a high class household if the people who are running it, the patriarch and the matriarch have high class expectations. And this will get into the cheese thread, ironically. One of the funniest things I think about the cheese thread, it is like the big, like this just giant flashing, like I was raised in a low class household type post. So this stuff about his mom, I mean, even at 15, at least it's when he's 15. That's all I can say as far as like any positives. So his house burns down. What's interesting about this is it was his mom's boyfriend, I guess, who burned the house down. But he's complaining in this post about how she has no boyfriend. And so then he gets one, and he's like insane, right? The other thing is, okay, so this is all public. Like, look, he's using his name here. He's talking about his house being burned down on a Blockland forum. Whoa. Like, this isn't, no one had to dig this up as far as, like going to the police station or it being reported in the news or something. And I guess this is one of his old, like, forum enemies. The one thing that I got out of this that I think is bad is this part. My cat was a burden. Although I loved him, I don't think smoke inhalation was a suitable death for such a loving old man. I do know he doesn't have to deal with my mom's abuse, and nobody has to worry about him now. So he's saying his mom abused the cat? Andrew made everyone miserable, and my mom was too afraid to be left alone. He's facing 20 years in prison, violating parole, domestic battery, 2 counts of temper. Like, this is like white trash shit. I mean, like, and I get that he it wasn't his choice to be raised in like a low class household. I'm just saying, like, these things are formulative, and so when you have poor coping mechanisms and you like spurg out on the forum, which is what we're gonna get to, like, you can kind of see where that comes from. So this is, I guess, the drama of him getting kicked off. This is the other thing. He socked. That's another funny thing is there's this like persistent problem on Kiwi Farms with socking, and the problem isn't that people sock. People are always going to sock. I get it, whatever. The problem is the inconsistent enforcement of the policy. So like, there are certain individuals he lets sock and certain individuals he doesn't, and I just really don't. I've like confronted him on the forum about this, and he got really mad and banned me from a thread. And I just, and it was over. I think it was about a certain individual that I'm not going to name because I don't want to give them any attention. But I was basically like, why is this person not allowed to have a sock, but these people are? Not because I wanted it to be allowed, but just like, can we just enforce the rules? And, I think that the thing that Josh hates the most is having to like justify himself for the decisions he makes on the website, because there's a perception that since he's the only one who's willing to keep it up and put his own name on it, it gives him a right to do whatever he wants. And it does give him a right to do whatever he wants. It is his website. But that's not why you justify. You don't justify your policies to the users because if you can't do them otherwise. Like, the justification is the reward in itself. And it allows for like easier moderation in the future because policies are transparent. So they're talking about banning him on site. Okay, so here we get to 8chan. So, basically what happened, in 2014, Joey Quinn had sex with 5 video game. Okay, no, I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but so the Gamergate people got banned off 4chan, so then they wanted to go make their own 8chan, which had a structure where anyone could make their own like forum on the website, like a sub forum, essentially. And that led to exactly what you would expect, which is a whole bunch of like really bad CP type stuff, lolicon, whatever. And as a way to make the site work better and to combat that, Frederick Hot Wheels, which is this guy, you can see why they call him Hot Wheels, who's actually like a liberal furry now. I don't know what the fuck happened there. I mean, it's clearly, I think it went to his brain, whatever it's got. Anyway, hired Null to go live in the Philippines with him and work on Infinity Next. And one of the reasons why this is controversial is because he claims, so Josh claims he did the work. He did Infinity Next. It just never got implemented because of a dispute over servers and money between Frederick and who eventually and between Frederick and who would eventually own 8chan, which is the Q guys. They became the Q guys. Jim Watkins. And there's another narrative about that Null basically just took the money and blew it and just, as he says here, ate pizza and watched King of the Hill. It was hard to find clothes for people his size here, so I showed him one of my favorite episodes, Husky Bobby from season 2. I don't know, man. Bobby at least had 2 parents. And that's like a high-class household. The Hanks household. Even though they're not rich. So he's on Adderall. So basically, the perception you get here is that we're eating pizza, watching King of the Hill, getting zonked on Adderall. Whatever, man. I don't really care about the 8chan stuff other than the toleration of like lolicon. And the reason why is because 8chan became such like a disaster after like Jim Watkins took over and all the Q stuff, and there were better alternatives even at the time. So here's the claim that I said is one of the narrative. Josh's tenure with 8chan seems to have been universally reviled, bringing nothing to the table, delivering none of what he promised. Josh also maliciously altered the source code, which caused sluggish performance. So that's the other thing, is that, Josh does a lot of the work on the website himself, Kiwi Farms, on the back end. He's made like big promises about rewriting Zen 4.0, Sneed 4.0, making his only thing. And let's just say that the actual results of his technical knowledge don't line up to the claims sometimes. And that's kind of what this is talking about. Is that like his mouth writes technical checks that his ass can't cash. Now, of course, he claims that he was reading because of backdoors. I think the actual official claim now is that he left because Jim Watkins wanted like ownership. Yeah, so we're on Adderall. Hot Wheels not only tells us of Josh's inability. See, here's the problem with Hot Wheels is ever since becoming like a liberal furry, and it's not just because like he's liberal. That's not what I'm not saying. Like, because if you're liberal, you're by definition untrustworthy. I think most people are actually more apolitical than they realize, as far as their character. The reason I said I only bring this up is just because having such a big reversal like that, and having to essentially prove your reputation to a new group that you were previously oppositional to, might make you come up with some stories, especially at a time when Josh was like in the crosshairs of that community. I do believe the Adderall stuff because it's like he claimed it himself. So then he made the Quickie forum. So this is like proto Kiwi Farms because it was originally the CWC forums, and which was a forum for the Quickie, which is like a wiki for Christian. That's the other thing is, it's sort of like what's a good example? There's a lot of people who think that like Josh built Kiwi Farms himself from the ground up. I'd say that that's like 80% true. Most of the hard stuff he was there to kind of the only guy to do, but he did not make the website. And he inherited it essentially. And through his influence, it's kind of turned into what it has today. That's why I said that this quote at the beginning is like, this aspect, no facet of it exists. This is cringe, but it is true. Let me get back to where we were. Okay, so this is just drama with the original owner and with the original people on the Quickie. It is kind of interesting how there's always been like female drama around this guy, and I don't get it. Whether it be him supposedly stalking some girl on the Blockland thing, to this drama, which was at the very beginning of Kiwi Farms and apparently is related to a girl. And then even today, there's the whole, there's all the shit with Little Drip, which we'll get to. So, Kiwi Farms, here's the thing. Like I said, I like the website. I think it's fun to use. And I just would want more websites like this to exist, as far as just like forums with distinct forum culture and not being a mainstream platform. That's it. That's really all I'm talking about when I mean that. The thing is, so there's this other narrative that I think is going to be in here, that he's like held hostage by the website. essentially that he's scared that if he was to ever do something the website doesn't like, or he was ever to try to detach himself, they would ruin his life. And it's not just a narrative. He himself, there are probably screenshots in here, have said that. I actually think that that's an overblown worry now. It might not have used to be when the site was smaller and was a bit more autistic. These days, there's enough diversity in the user base that I think that if he tried to step away, there would be blowback, but it'd be all over the place. There would be people defending it. There would be people who don't like it but don't really care, and all this other stuff. So this is the revolving culture. This is what I was bringing up before, is that initially, like you have to understand that a lot of the original trolls for Chris Chan were vaguely like liberal-ish. And the reason why is because Chris Chan himself, he talked about how like he didn't like homosexuals and that he was in like a, I don't know, they were like vaguely boomer Republican from Virginia type family, right? So a lot of the people who A-logged Chris Chan were like atheists, or like socially liberal, as it says here. So that was actually like a big part of the site initially. What happens though is that other places on the internet get culled, notably, and I don't think he says here directly, but when R. Donald on Reddit got killed, like the consequences of the banning of the R. Donald Reddit have been a disaster for internet culture, because you had they became refugees. They were like Syrian refugees, and they had to go all these different places. And some of the places they went, they were so annoying or whatever that it pushed people who were there to other places. And so it becomes this sort of like domino effect, right? And so I think that after that, and like around Trump, that is when the site became a lot more right wing. And also like Josh himself became a lot more right wing as far as like the JQ and race and all this other stuff. I don't really care about any of this. I'm fine with the website being all over the place politically. I think it makes it more fun. I would like him, you should kind of just let it be this little petri dish that develops on its own. Although maybe these users should have just learned to banter. It would have been disheartening to see your board change so quickly, and many left are spurred out, including former mod Anonymous, who lost his broom, which is weird because he's still on the site. And you can tell that he's like from that original culture where it's like generally socially liberal. He's kind of, I don't know. Let's see what this is.
There's something here. Okay, classroom 99. What?
Gotta sweep!
Beta! I don't. Okay,
Is this, so this, I think, is a claim about the Simspiracy, which we'll get to here. And this is this Lowtax? No, it's not. There's going to be a lot of comparisons there between Josh and Lowtax, because it's sort of Josh kind of views Lowtax as his like spiritual liege, to take a term 40k, where it's like he's trying to learn all the lessons that Lowtax didn't. And there was a whole arc where Josh basically tried to take over something awful. I don't know if it's going to be in here, but as Lowtax's like mental health declined and he wanted less and less to do with the site, and the site was becoming more and more toxic and just gay, Josh basically tried to insert himself into the back end on something awful and convince Lowtax to give him more control to reinforce a more coherent board culture that he liked better. And obviously that didn't work out, and it didn't happen. What ended up happening is Lowtax blew his brains out, unfortunately. Rest in peace. But, and I'm not blaming Josh for that, obviously. That was Lowtax. Lowtax was on that road. Okay? He had been on that road for years. Whereas I think that a lot of what, and he'll say it himself, like I'm sure there's some screenshots here, but a lot of what he does is in direct trying to learn a lesson from Lowtax, but sometimes he goes way too far in the other direction. So like a big reason why he's so hands-on with the forum, especially the culture, and banning people seemingly out of hair triggers, because he's like, I don't want to be passive like Lowtax and let the website turn gay or whatever. And there's some truth to that, is that you need to you should be active in your project, especially something that's requires so much like social cultivation, like of a community or a culture. But when you're putting so much of your own like mental goo into it that you're just like I said, like have a hair trigger where you will just spurg out and do random shit, like ban whole forums, ban whole threads or people who've been on the website for decades, it builds up this back catalog of bad feeling and enemies that only seems to be getting bigger every day with him. And it's so funny because like the part of this that people are the most sympathetic with Josh is the deplatforming of the website by mostly like left-wing activists and transgender people. But if it was ever to go down, I don't think it'd be from them. I think it would be an internal thing. I think it would be, and by internal, I mean like former fans, like these guys who have been on the website for 10 years and then get banned because they get into a fight over the availability of cheese in the United States. And you do that one too many times, and eventually you just have this like really galvanized hater community. And this is what I mean when I say it's like the opposite of Lowtax. The thing with Lowtax is because he didn't intervene in the website's culture, he didn't have a lot of super enemies. He didn't have like a giant hater community at first because it's like he didn't do anything to piss anyone off. He just sort of let the website develop. Now, it developed in a bad direction, which would eventually bite him in the ass. I'm not saying he did it better, but what I'm saying is that what's the other side of the coin? The other side of the coin is being super active, being super punitive. Like I said, being willing to ban people who've been there for 10 years because you think that they're bad for the site culture, and then you end up with a whole bunch of enemies. And I think both of the paths of that can converge. It's not me saying like this is going to end with Josh killing himself. I don't know. I can't tell the future, but it does have like a mental. Both of those can have a mental weight. For Lowtax, For Lowtax, it was waking up one day and realizing that the website that is the only is your entire worth, both morally and financially, is completely unrecognizable to you. That's like one mental weight that's really bad. The other one on the other side is waking up and realizing that all the people along the way who helped you, who who helped you and were like a big part of this culture that you're trying to preserve, hate you and aren't even on the website anymore. And you can kind of see that with like the fans of his podcast and the people who are his biggest defenders. Is there's a time preference to like the people who dislike versus like Josh. The people who like Josh tend to have liked Josh because they found him in the last 2 years and are mostly focused on the internet advocacy stuff and keeping the website off. The people who don't are people who have like been around this community for 10 years. And that kind of tells you something. So this was, I think this is based, I mean, I guess this isn't in the thread for completeness, but basically the Christchurch shooting video got re-uploaded on Kiwi Farms, and when New Zealand asked for it to be taken down, he told them to fuck off. I don't have any issue with this. This was based. He did the right thing here. And this, however, was not based. The hack. There was a hack in 2019. And this is what I mean when I say that there's these like regular cullings where something will happen and it means a whole bunch of users either are scared off the site or just can't access it anymore. And it then creates this vacuum that a new culture, a new community can come in and sort of go through the same cycle with him over and over again, because, you know, time is a flat circle and all. This isn't the only one. This is kind of less. This was serious. The 2019 one was really serious. This one was kind of a meme. This, and it doesn't say here in here, which is, I don't know. I'm not going to say it's dishonest, but I think it's an important part of the story, is that the hack was done by like some 15-year-old from Turkey or something who like didn't even know what the fuck they were doing. And there was all this whole claim that like Josh paid him off with Bitcoin or something. He wanted to. That what he claims is that he was trying to hire him, because this was a period where Josh was saying that he wanted to rewrite the Zenforo software because Zenforo kicked him off, and wanted to hire him to work on it. Nothing really came of it. So here's the trans stuff. What's odd about this is there's some of these posts like it's pretty cringe. I will say this. I don't really care about homophobia. I don't care if he doesn't like gay people, well, not gay people, but like homosexuality as a phenomenon. There's a difference between homosexuality and homosexuals, if you know what I mean. And I mean, can you really blame him with the trans stuff after they've like tried to shut it down? But this is funny. The fact that he's said that he's like attracted to an androgynous version of himself, because that sounds like autophilia, which is like a core part of, you know, one theory about the trans phenomenon. He likes Ted Kaczynski. I don't have a problem with that. I think that industrial society and its consequences is great. Obviously, his methodology was flawed. He would have done a lot more good if he had just written books from his cabin, not blown people up. Oh, here we go. So, this is him saying I'm an incel, which, again, I don't really see how this goes, like, is that much of an own on him from this community. I understand, like, Ralph should be able to throw it back at him. KCA logs think that feds got to Jersh for hosting the mosque shooting and maybe behind the user hacks and validity. Okay, so here's what I'll say about that. I don't think the feds would have any leverage over him for the mosque shooting video because it's legal in the US. That's the one of the biggest narratives against Josh that I think is kind of a waste of time and that you could focus on other stuff is the whole he's committed federal crimes, he's going to jail shit. Because it's just not, like, there's literally nothing he's done that's been a federal crime. Now, there could be something in the future that's made a crime or whatever, but the Christchurch video was illegal in New Zealand, but not in the US or anywhere else that he's lived. So I don't think that there's any validity to them getting him through that. There could be another way they got to him. Like, for example, okay, let's talk about Nick Fuentes, who we all know is a Fed, right? How did they get to Nick Fuentes? Well, Nick Fuentes has serious money cash flow problems. And you can see it with all of his begging around AFPAC. You can see it when he went and met with, I forget what the journalist, or not the journalist, the newspaper, where he asked them for money in exchange for the payment info of all the people who donated to AFPAC. And the way feds get to you, one of the number one ways is through money. It's basically if you have a money problem and they offer a solution. And then the minute you say yes to any of it, even if you think you're just dipping your toes in, they got you. Because the only way for you to get more money in the future is through this authenticity bartering that you do with the audience that they could destroy at any moment. The thing with Josh is that his whole problem, he has had money problems in the sense that debanking and all of that. But you don't see any signs that it's like ever been solved from an outside source. He's always had to like do some weird bullshit like begging the audience like he did recently where he was finally got on something. As far as whether the user hacks are feds, the 2022 one, I don't think so. I was watching this as it happened, and the guy, the like 15-year-old Turk who hacked in 2022, who didn't even drop any of the like info that he supposedly got. Like this doesn't look like this one really doesn't. This literally just looks like some kid being an idiot. The 2019 hack, it's possible that's like a federal thing. It was obviously adverse to Josh though, because Josh like almost shut down the website for good afterwards. So it doesn't make sense that it's like a false flag hack where the feds let's like hypothetically, the feds say like, we need you to give us all the user info. So you're gonna stage a fake hack. Like there's this concept of like burning an asset in intelligence, which is that a lot of the times you can only kind of push the button once. You can only squeeze an asset once and then everybody knows and it's over, right? If this was like a Fed fake hack, this would have burned that asset. Kiwi Farms would not still be like a thing. It would have probably shut it down. And something. What I believe more is that this is a hack that was done by either long-term enemies of the site, probably burned because of Josh's poor behavior, let's be real, or like some kind of like left-wing, right-wing thing. Because you got to remember that 2019's right before the election. This is probably when the site was the most monolithically right-wing, because it's before a lot of the female audience came that are like feminists. So I could see it being a left-wing, right-wing thing. One thing I will say, whether it's feds or not, this is a product of incompetence. Okay? There's no defense for, like, allowing something like this to happen. So if people criticize him and say, like, you're a retard for letting this happen, and it burned long-term users who, like, made up the culture that you seem to want to preserve so much, I think that's completely valid to criticize him for. Yeah, like I said, this is him loving... androgynous. I don't know, like, oh, this stuff, the incel stuff, whatever, but is this the broke dick message? So I'm circumcised and don't enjoy sex. I've never. Okay. See, what this screams to me is only tried to have sex once type stuff. Because you hear that is something that happens, is that people get like addicted to pornography and then they can't perform the first time. I've heard that happening to people. But what I'm saying is that this does not give off I've had sex more than once energy. This gives off I tried once and then let it live rent free in my head for the rest of my life and inform my views on sex, which is tough. I don't feel anything. That's tough. This is the broke dick stuff. And here's the problem: is how can he deny this when these are his messages? Like, he'd have to say these are fake. So like in the Ralph debate, when Ralph is screaming at him like broke dick, broke dick, broke dick, broke dick, and then he says, no, it all works fine. It's like, well, then what is this? Are these fake? Because this is you. No one made you post this. No one made you talk in this Discord about this kind of topic. And it's just so funny because, like, obviously he talks a lot about OPSEC. He talks a lot about, not oversharing about what makes up a lolcow. But this is straight up lolcow behavior, is talking about this in the Discord. And that's why there should be, like, a thread on this. Like, this thread does not exist purely from spite. It exists because there are messages like this. Right? Abuse, suicide, and cover-up. I'm surprised this is in here because I am still confused about what the fuck happened here. Because, okay, so as it says here, emulator developer whines about a thread that has like freaking 5 posts in it, and by complaining about it then blows it up, which was stupid. Says they'll commit suicide if he doesn't take it down. And Josh basically burns them and says no, like cuts contact, which is the right thing to do, by the way. Like any kind of deal you try to make with them just makes you look bad, which is why this part where Bu tries to extort them, or this part where it says offer Josh money, like this is the most damaging part of this to me, is because there have always been claims floating around that Josh has like favoritism on the website, and we'll talk about that when we get to the Simspiracy, but this offer even existing is damaging. And the way you prevent it is you just literally do not respond. Like the minute someone is telling, shut down my thread or I'll kill myself, it's just like block, goodbye. I don't want anything to do with you. But again, it's just, again, it's just like this maturity gap that exists that I think is a product of a low class upbringing and single mother. The reason why I say I still don't understand what happened here is because there's so much proof that this person did not kill themselves. So much proof that it doesn't make sense. But then finally, eventually, I think it was a year ago, there is a record now with like the Japanese embassy saying that they died. But like nothing else adds up. So I have no idea. As far as, like I said, the main reason this is probably here is just because of this. Dropped Kiwi Farms as one when it tried to kill the website. And, this is one of the rare cases where I actually think that this was not something he brought on himself. Like a lot of these other fights, and we'll find, MSPECs leaving the hacker, stuff that is sort of, like I said, brought about by like impulsive, low IQ behavior. This was an actual political crusade against the site for no reason. And that's probably why it failed so hard. Like why it mobilized so much support for the website, because at the end of the day, most people just want like a shit posting forum to shit post. So, okay, here's the DSP thread stuff. I've been on the front. I've watched a lot of this happen on the website. He hates the DSP board. And on the one hand, I kind of understand why, because the DSP is worthy of ridicule. He's worthy of coverage. He's a lolcow for a reason. No fucking doubt about that. But some of the stuff that DSP A-logs do, and he'll point this out, I'm sure, in this video, is crazy, and it literally helps DSP. His problem with the DSP board is that it is basically its own little ghettoized community that doesn't interact with the rest of the site. Now, here's the thing, and I've never heard anyone bring this up, but does that sound like anywhere else? What did I talk about at the beginning of this stream? I talked about how there is the board, or the website has become increasingly having like a larger female audience, which is fine, and that they have their own little section of the website that they moderate themselves and has its own culture, and that occasionally it rubs up against and blows up in conflict with the other parts of the site that are more male and more generally right-wing. That's literally the DSP board. It's the same problem. But the difference is, of course, Null has this weird kind of history with dealing with women, and So he kind of allows that little nation within the nation to exist, but the DSP board he spurgs out. Now, personally, my opinion is that both of them should be fine and should be allowed to run themselves as long as they follow basic rules. But the fact that one has been threatened to be destroyed multiple times by him, and it's probably going to happen someday. I'm just going to say it, because so many of his moderation decisions are literally made at 2 a.m. when mad, that it's probably going to get deleted someday. But it is interesting to see how the problems that he brings up with the DSP board could be thrown back at the beauty parlor board, but one of them gets so much airtime and so much rent in his brain and the other one doesn't. And again, like I said, my position is that they should both exist, but there's a double standard.
Yes, there's so many moving parts that I have to manage myself, and I can't rely on anybody else to host anything that's related to us. So I have to end up doing a ton of shit and maintain it all, and it's just the biggest pain in the ass. And then I have to find different hosts every fucking week and shit. It's a lot of work, chat, which is why it pisses me off a little bit when I ask a group of people on my site to not be deranged lunatic psychopaths, and they tell me no.
Okay, here's the thing. Remember when I said that the reason why you want consistent rules that are very transparent is because it makes moderation easier in the future? This is what I'm talking about. When he says a deranged psychopath, whatever, what exactly is he talking about? What exact post? What exact conduct? And I'm not saying that because I don't think it happens. I'll tell you what it is. It's them hacking his internet, DSP's internet. It's them posting leaked bank information. But because there isn't, the rules are not transparent enough that say this is exactly where the line is, it's very easy for people who want to use this against him to bring up, well, what about these posts on this other forum that are just people being crazy and saying that this locale should die or whatever? Because if it's just people being crazy in a general sense, that can be applied to almost the entire site. What he means, what he should mean, is like these very specific potential, these very specific actions that are the results of actually illegal conduct, like hacking and right. But he gets in this, he sees so much red, he gets so much mad that he just drops into and I've seen this so many times. He goes in and he responds to an otherwise pretty mundane post or whatever, like the person just posted CP and just spurgs the fuck out. And then you know how everyone responds? They're like, whoa, buddy, what's the problem? What are you even mad about? And it's like, there is something there to be mad about, but that's not what he's responding to in the moment. And it makes him look like a fucking psycho.
Oh, actually, you simping. I actually wasn't going to talk about this, but I think it escalates. If I say anything to these people, they will just remain angry.
But again, we should look at some of the posts of him going into the DSP board, because if we're talking about escalation theory here, this isn't like he goes into the board and it's like, hey guys, I hear that there's some bank leaks that may have been obtained illegally. I don't really want to host that on the website or encourage it. So maybe we could do... No, it's drops in and just starts being like, I want to personally slit the throat of every user of this forum. You guys are crazy. You're refugees. You have no connection. And then it's like, well, who's the who's starting at stage 22 of the escalation chart here?
Continuously. Until I do something about it. It's a really weird thing where... the dark side Phil people cannot be tolerated on anywhere. They get banned from everything all the fucking time because they're just...
What's really funny about that is he says that, but the dark side Phil A-log community is on YouTube. You know what community is not on YouTube? Most of the sector people. Most of the sector people are too hot for YouTube. Or if they are on YouTube are have to super self-censor. I mean, think about, for example, think about Kino Casino. There's a reason why they don't stream on YouTube. And it's because they would get banned. They'd get TOS'd. But most of the Dark Side Field A-logs have full-on YouTube channels. And I'm not saying that they're good or that, I like them or anything. I'm just saying that this idea that the Phil community is as a whole entirely so off the reservation. There are people that are, and they're the people who hack his bank account. They're the people who hack his internet and whatnot. But just the general discussion is not that crazy. And that will be what he goes in and spurgs out at, not the stuff that's illegal.
It's like deranged psychopaths who are single-mindedly obsessed with one fat retard. And I ask only
You run a local. That's what the website's for.
one thing of them, which is to lighten up and take it fucking easy.
So I remember what he's referring to here. There was an incident where he came in, he spurged out, and he said, I don't hate Null that much. I like the website. And I think that he deserves credit for keeping it up. And I think that he deserves credit for putting up with a lot of bullshit that a lot of other people would not have put up with and would have shut it down by then. I give him, and I agree with his goals regarding internet preservation. But like, and this is like the gay sides shit. Like how when I went into the Kino Casino A-logs, people were shitting on me for being, quote, a Ralph A-log. It's Ethan Ralph. He does funny shit, and I'm going to cover it. This guy also sometimes has spurgouts and has a history. And so, yeah, I'm going to cover it, especially when people are saying that I'm sweeping, because this like sides brain is so lame in the sector of the internet that is not serious. All we're doing is having fun and laughing at people for doing silly shit. And I'm not going to not cover one side of it just because, like, there's some kind of blood oath loyalty to using the website. I don't hate I don't know these people. I can't, like, dig up hate. Even for Ethan Ralph. Even though, like, all the bad shit he's done. But, you know, when we have these melties where he goes into the DSP board and says, you guys don't have jokes, you guys are too serious, provide me one funny thing Ralph or DSP has done to justify your existence, and then they give him 20 pages of proof. And then they don't get and then he doesn't, like, say, oh, okay, cool. Got it, see you at Temple. Yeah. Exactly. And they give him all this proof, and then he like will do the same thing 6 months later, as if he didn't just like get BTFO essentially.
You don't have to do crazy illegal shit to Darkside Phil. You can lighten up a little bit, and it's always met with this utter.
It's not. I remember the post he's talking about. People provided proof. People were like, "No, here are all the jokes that get made. Here's like the fun and like exactly what he asked for."
Contempt of me for even daring to ask them that they do something a little bit differently. And it's like I don't have this. It's so bizarre because I have this issue with nobody else on the entire planet. Do I have an issue where I go into a thread and I say, hey,
which again I think is funny because there is another the beauty parlor section of the site does run up against the site culture all the time, and there are massive blow-ups. But he doesn't have a problem with that. And again, I don't think he should. I think he should just let both of them exist. But there's only one of them that gets threatened to get deleted all the time.
Hey, except the Cyrex people, they're similar. Where it's like you say, hey, you know, maybe don't do this because that's probably illegal and it's kind of retarded. Say no, he is actually a bad person, and therefore,
yeah. And the people, he's right to call that out. Like anyone who thinks that they're saving the West by a-logging DSP is gay. Just like how anyone thinks that they're saving, like they're fighting the Zog by making fun of Null because there's a Gabe Hoffman conspiracy is also gay. Again, it's like Ken Chadwick said, it's about ethics and a-logging. No, we're just here to laugh at funny people online. When they do funny shit, you can laugh at it. It's not that big of a deal. This is the Telegram, him firing their Jannies. I don't really care. The cheese thread. When do you think he figured out his Maddie and Forum audience were separate entities and he could pitch them against each other? Now, that's a very interesting observation because you're completely fucking right that they're different. Completely right. And all it takes is go look in the thread for Maddie. Because the people who post in the Maddie thread only post in the Maddie thread. And you look at like the YouTube and the comments and stuff. And one of it trends way more normie, way more cares about the the political aspect or the charity or whatever. And then the forum audience is more, you know, like just people laughing at people online, right? Now, whether he pitches them against each other, I kind of think you're giving him more credit than he deserves. Like, I'm not saying that they aren't pitched against each other or that there isn't friction there. There totally is. But I don't know if it's like, I don't think it's intentional. I think it's just poor community management, which is funny because he does insert himself a lot in the forum culture because he's trying to be the opposite, like I said, be the opposite of Lowtax, be super hands-on, keep it going. But there will eventually be some kind of weird blow up between the two that like more than there already has been because I don't know, like they are really different. And like for someone like me, who I watched Maddie like basically since he started it. I think I watched like some of the first streams. Like I remember the North Korea stream, the Internet Juche stream, which he's completely like renounced that philosophy, which is fine. I mean, it's worked for him, whatever, who cares. But the I stopped watching them like quite a few years ago, not out of like indignation or because, I stand against Null, or it just wasn't that entertaining anymore. There's a combination of things that kind of make the streams that hurt his streams, which are, number one, the guy cannot speak. Sorry, but like I made a joke here in the cheese thread where I said, if I put a gun to your head and asked you to properly pronounce a random word from the dictionary with more than 2 syllables, you would also die. And part of this, I have a whole theory. The theory is that when you're raised online and you don't have like actual face-to-face, when your primary mode of social development is not actual face-to-face interactions and conversations, it means that your vocabulary might be large because you read a lot, but you can't pronounce any of the words. And he used to be worse. I'll say that aspect of it. So anyway, he can't talk. Number one. Number two, his coverage is just really. There's like weird mistakes, like the stuff that he gets wrong is like the easy stuff that is like really simple, and he'll like speak off the cuff about it. And he has all the info in front of him. He has, like I said, like the Library of Alexandria of lol cows. And so then, and then he combines it with like, he'll like talk about politics or like political philosophy and stuff. And I'm sorry, man, but can you put the lol cow takes in the bag? Because some of the stuff that he said, where he asserts analysis on theory and politics, it's like Denham's tier. It's like, it's really dumb. And it's not because, he's too right wing. It's like, no, I pretty much agree. I'm pretty much on the same side of the spectrum as he is. It's just, I don't want to hear about like the geopolitics of Israel or whatever from Null, from Kiwi Farms, because there's so many like historical inaccuracies and stuff that he says that it just annoys me. Right. This is like, like Kino Casino, for example, they do This Week in Kakada. And don't take this as me like sweeping for Kino Casino. I'm just giving you an example here. PPP does actually kind of know about Canadian political history, so he can talk about that. But what you don't see them do is like talk about, again, like theory or like philosophy or any of this other stuff, because it would be literally Kraksky lectures you on essence, energies, distinction, right? Like it wouldn't work. Okay. What's wrong with Israel? I love Israel. I fucking love Israel. In fact, I think Israel is the final solution. So here's the cheese thread. This thread, the reason why this is here is because, and I said this at the time, I said this in the thread, I feel like this thread encapsulates exactly the low-class, single mother upbringing outlook. When you're telling me that you can't find cheese in America, that you're like, what you consider a regular grocery store literally doesn't sell cheese. What you're telling me is that you were taken to the 99-cent store for grocery shopping for all of your childhood. And that's a money thing, right? That's like I get it. People are poor. They got to buy poor stuff, whatever. Or they got to like price hunt or whatever. But it's just tell me you went to you think the 99-cent store is a grocery store without telling me. And of course people dabbed on him and laughed at him. But here's where you get the problem. For a guy who, like I said, runs the premier spot for talking shit online and not taking things too seriously. For the guy who just in this video a minute ago is like, where's the fun? We're just here to have fun. When people aren't just trying to have fun, that's the problem. For you to make something that is so obviously hilarious and just really self-reporting like this, and then most of the thread is just people laughing at you, and then you close it and say that it's actually a conspiracy of 4 people constantly replying to argue the same shit, it's gay. It's gay. And in my post for here, I just brought up that, like, in a lot of ways, Null is kind of like Forrest Gump, where I don't think he has a lot of life experience about really anything. And so he'll sometimes say stuff like this that's really stupid. But then occasionally, because he has very simple, basic principles on like free speech and stuff, we'll get wins, like with the drop Kiwi Farms. I just think that's funny. Okay, the conspiracy thing. I'll say this. The full version of this theory, which is that when the Dick Masterson Simtex drop, Josh swept the forum because he was afraid of getting kicked off of Dick Masterson's payment processor. He's more like the opposite of Gump. Yeah, maybe. There's some relation there I'm trying to work out. But, well, no, because the opposite of Gump would be like a genius. And like I said, my theory is that I think Josh has core principles that when he sticks by them and doesn't think about them too hard can get him benefits, like the free speech stuff. But like when it's anything outside of those principles, he has zero life experience or knowledge, and it just stupid shit happens. I guess he's the opposite of Gump in the sense that Gump like did a lot in his life. Super smart, no life experience. Yeah, maybe. I don't think he's super smart though. I don't think he's stupid. I think he's normal. I think he's like median IQ. Anyway, the Simspiracy stuff. I don't believe in the most extreme form of this theory. I don't think that there was a conspiracy specifically to sweep the website. But what I do think that happens is that it's very easy to sort of it's very easy to sort of corral Josh into doing something against his interests, and by associating opposition to like an action. And he calls this like oppositional defiance disorder, which is not like a real thing, but whatever. My point here is that what happened is by claiming a Simspiracy, you end up making him do a Simspiracy. You see what I mean? It's like a chicken or the egg thing. It's like, I don't think that Josh actually did get the call from Dick Masterson and say, I need you to sweep this up or you're gonna be off of my payment processor. I don't think that happened. But I think that when people pitched that in the thread, he spurgs out, he gets mad, and he starts sweeping them. Okay, well, now there is a Simspiracy. It's like, well, now there is kind of a conspiracy, right? And so, like, the full PPP form of this, I don't believe, but I do believe that he may as well have been one by the end because of, like, his response. And this is what I mean is that, like, the response ends up creating sort of, like, the initial claim that was wrong. Yes, reverse psychology and manipulation, exactly. Now, what's really funny about all this is this whole Simspiracy thing pissed him off so much that it was the primary reason he would not interact with PPP because, and I kind of understand why, because if there's one thing that Josh really has to protect, it's the perception of being uncompromised. And I don't say that as like that's a bad thing. That is what he should focus on, right? It's a perception that if so many of the people support the website because it's viewed as this like free speech bastion and it can't be influenced, it's super important for him to defend that. That's also why I said that back in the Abuse stuff, the idea that he got offered money was the most damaging aspect. And so he took this so personally that he like would not interact with PPP even though he thought it was funny. There's a call-in where PPP calls into Rekida's show and fights with Dick Masterson. He's one of the funniest call-ins I've ever heard. I might watch that on stream someday because it's a classic. And it really does highlight it really does highlight the how different PPP is now, like what we've lost essentially in his complete flip on that. What was his revenue prior to the Maddie super chats? He did it's not in this thread, but I actually know the answer to that question. He did contract programming contract work for originally it was for a company in Australia. I don't know if he was living in Australia, but he did work for them, and then he would just occasionally do like contracts, individual contracts. And that he did that under his under his personal name, not under like Kiwi Farms. And he refers to that in some of the earliest Maddie episodes, before it made any money, that he would do programming contracts. And also considering that this guy basically just sits in an apartment on his computer, I guarantee you that his cost of living is extremely low. And recall, he lived in Ukraine for a while. He lived in, what was it? Not Odessa. It might have been Odessa, but he lived in Ukraine. Yeah, the other aspect is he did before he got debanked, the whole Yaniv shit. you might find people with the true and honest tag that are like really old users. There was a period of time from like, I'm not going to say definitively these are the years, but there's a period of time from like 2016 to like 2018-ish where there was ways to send him money, and that's how a lot of people got the true and honest tags. Okay, this is a guy. Yeah, this is him telling people to kill themselves. He does this all the time. And this is kind of what I was referring to when I said that the way he talks in the Blockland messages, it really hasn't changed. As far as this aspect of him like being like super hyper aggressive. Okay, I have not watched this video. This could be really bad. But I want to hear the argument here, okay?
Hey, Josh.
Because a lot of people say that like, oh, Josh is a pedophile. I've never really believed that, just because there's essentially two pieces of evidence for it. One, the Shoda text, which is bad. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know if that alone is like a lifelong dedicated pedophile. Number two, the 16chan stuff, which I was not aware of until I was informed on that stream, which was a forum he ran after 8chan, where he had like a containment file board. Now, having a containment file board is fucking disgusting and is crazy. That was what he considered the solution to be. But there is a cope, and I'm calling it a cope for a reason, because I'm not saying this is a very good argument, but a cope that, well, you know, he really did think he was just containing it or whatever. And obviously you shouldn't like accept that to make it acceptable. But again, if I'm trying to actually like get to the core of the claim about why people say like it, not just that he enabled it or just that he made a bunch of, he's a patsy or he's stupid, but he himself is one. Like that just, it's circumstantial. When I say circumstantial, I don't mean bad evidence. You can convict on circumstantial evidence. It's just, you know, it's on the pile, I guess. So let's listen to this.
Shit, you're such a fucking nigger. You suck
Sorry.
my dick for fucking months. Then the second I come and ask questions about why you're going after Ralph's friends, you start calling me a fucking child predator. Dude, slit your fucking throat.
You're here
I
to
said
explain yourself
specifically
today,
that
Mr.
it's
Josh.
only 16chan that I had something on.
Yes,
Let's-
16chan had
calm
problems
down,
with
calm
people
down.
posting child
Calm down.
pornography because it's a fucking image board, you dumb.
I didn't say it
Josh,
wasn't justified. I hadn't gone all the way there because they got hung up on the CP comment. But I would actually like to hear some more elaboration on this, and I think it's a good time to.
It's an image
Dispatch, shut your
board.
fucking mouth.
So
Josh,
then
I have
there's
some
an
questions.
image board there created file. Who created file?
Are the
Fucking no,
allegations
it's an
true or not?
image board.
So I think what Josh is trying to say here is it's well known that if you have an image board, it's going to get spammed with CP. Like, it literally doesn't matter what your policies are or anything. It's going to happen. Now, you can take mitigating actions to try to ban people, ban IPs, do whatever. But, like, what he's saying is here is the minute you have an image board, this is something you can expect. However, that does not justify having a dedicated board on the image board for it, right? Which is what I think he's asking him about.
It's an image board, but that doesn't excuse pedo stuff.
Have you ever been to an image board? Have you ever
Yes,
seen
I
what
have,
people
and I've
post
seen
when
a
they
lot
have
of
anonymous?
Josh, I've been to, I used to frequent this site called Funny Junk. There's a lot of degenerate stuff on there, which is being allowed, while they ban...
Did you just compare an image board to funny junk?
He did.
That is an image board. Funny Junk is an image board. Isn't it?
Can we kick Zug?
People
No,
are
we
saying
can't.
we should.
Look, like that wasn't the point. I'm just saying.
Zug, I'm gonna have to.
There's certain, like, moral lines you should adhere to.
Yes,
At least, you know,
I
it's not all-
understand the moral arguments for outright banning anything about pedophilia. I've heard them before. 16chan does not exist, so I'm not going to argue fucking moral fag shit. When I hosted 16chan, I took the rules of 8chan and I strengthened them. Strict. The rules of 16chan are stricter than 8chan was at the time, and that 8chan had a problem with pedophiles making image threads specifically containing pictures of children that they found on Facebook, off Google Images, off Instagram.
Oh, no.
It's not child porn, it's just pictures of children. Which is why when I made 16chan, I made a entire section of the rules explaining where the line is in pedophilia content. If you want to post it, you have to post in a text-only board. And to this day, Zoom says that's tacit endorsement. But what I was trying to do was to make a version of 8chan that was just as free as 8chan, but with less pedophile content. And people still posted CP because it's a fucking image board, and you can't really stop that. And yes, people made archives of it being on the site, but it got deleted when I woke up. It was only me moderating the website.
Let me just stop you there for a second. You can't stop that. You're right. You can't prevent someone from just making a new account and just posting that shit.
It's not. You don't even need to make an account.
Account? Okay. So my only complaints that I have against this is the fact that the file board itself was not was allowed to continue to have an existence throughout the 4 months there. How come you didn't just delete that entire board itself?
Yeah, okay. So Josh's claim here is that he took 8chan's rules, he strengthened them against pedophile type content. Sure, cool, whatever. And you know, maybe we can say they weren't strong enough, right? And yeah, exactly. Being pedo is okay if it's text. Like, you know, it's interesting because the Supreme Court, in defining obscenity, talks about lascivious intent, and that can be communicated through text. And so like it would be just as bad, right?
Because it didn't break the law.
But does deleting a board itself violate any free speech? You could still post things on other boards.
Well, the rules were that I had designed was that if you wanted to discuss child pornography, it had to be, no, not child pornography, but if you wanted to discuss anything about pedophilia, about attraction to kids, it had to be in a quarantine board with no images. So having one board for it.
Okay, so no images. All right, so that does recontextualize this. Again, you can have lascivious intent with text. So this is not like a get out, like this does not completely absolve, but I'm just trying to see where, like, what exactly this board was. And so he had a containment board where people could talk about the concept of pedophilia without. Why even have this board?
That was not listed on the index page, that didn't have images, was my solution to the issue.
So that board was text only. So then how did the rest of the...
Random people would post child pornography elsewhere on the site before I could delete it.
Gotcha. And just from the archives that I'd seen, it was a large amount, almost as if it had been kind of unmoderated. I'm guessing at that point there was... Do you know how many people were using this?
So I will say this: when he tried to make 9chan years later, it got immediately like raided with like CP2. So I do believe that there was like a concerted effort to raid the site with CP. And no, we can say that he should have. We can say like why even open a site like this unless you have all your ducks in a row so that doesn't happen. But that's more like discussing the competence of Josh issue, not is Josh a pedophile issue. That being said, having a board called file, where even though you're not posting images, so we can't say that he was like distributing images, but where people can basically write out their fantasies and stuff, is like, how is that the solution to the problem? What's solution? How is that a solution? Isn't the solution to the problem just not to allow it? And what's funny too is that's his policy now. Like Kiwi Farms, if you write like sick shit about abusing children, like you get banned.
I can't say
like
for sure,
he seems to.
It's very hard to collect metrics like that. We would receive several hundred posts a day at peaks. It would be between like a few dozen and a few hundred, depending on what was happening. But I was the only moderator.
Images proactively or reactively? Were you going out and looking for stuff that popped up on the front page?
I would do both, because the front page had an index of all, not only recent posts, but recent media. So for instance, if 300 posts were made to the site and 10 of them contained images, then on the front page you would see the last like 20 posts and then the last 20 images, which would be all 10 images from that recent batch.
Yeah, if only Richard Spencer was here.
Plus 10 more from before. And from that, I had a good overview of all content coming into the site when I looked at it. But from the D-index page that didn't show up on the front page, I'd have to rely on user reports, which is not uncommon. 8chan had similar...
So you had no moderators. Great.
Issues. 8chan, I don't know if people remember this, but to this day, 8chan does not appear on Google unless you specifically include the word 8chan in the search query, because 8chan had such a problem with child pornography being dumped on slow boards that it forced Google to basically remove them from the index.
Yeah, you can't find any 8chan links on Google now. So in this sense, then if you saw something, you would remove it then?
Yeah, I would be legally required to remove it as a U.S. citizen, and the server was hosted in Romania, which on Vincent Canfeld, I think is the last name, Vincent Canfeld's server, along with Cockmail. It was in that same
Okay,
data center.
so
and
again, the fact that the site got flooded, and like he couldn't moderate it, that's like a Josh is a retard issue, not Josh is a pedophile issue. Having a board though called file, and I guess the only good thing you can, well, not good thing, but the only least bad thing you can say about it is at least it was a text board, so we can't say that like Josh knowingly wanted like or knowingly and intentionally hosted CP. It's still bad. It's still bad to even have that. And like I said, to say that that's a solution, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And I think people are right to criticize this. I think it's fine that people have a problem with that decision in the past. Now, I'm glad that it's not the policy anymore. I'm glad that if on Kiwi Farms, even if it's just through text, if you say shit like that, it gets banned. But I think it's valid to like criticize past bad behavior. Especially just like this, just stupidity to think that was some kind of solution. He does sound like a butthole server. Yeah, that's tough. All right, Defense of Shadman. I've never seen these. I don't know what this is because obviously, like Shadman, he's talked so much shit about, and rightfully, obviously, like Shadman should be put on the wall, as Ricada would say. But this is the problem. Whenever we ruin someone's life for being an actual pedophile or animal abuser, people start clutching. What? Fuck off. What do you mean, fuck off? Wait. This, but it does bother me. He's drawing people's kids, so if he gets arrested, I'd laugh. Wow. I don't. This is not a good look, especially since now his and he said it on his show all the time that like Shadman is full on pedophile, no defense or whatever. But here, like the problem with this statement is it's not even like he's trying to say he's not a pet. Like that would be better somehow. Like that would be better because then at least you could say, well, I'm not defending a pedophile. I just don't think he is one because of this. And you could come up with some cope about why the images aren't his or I don't know, something like that. Right. But this is him saying that like, yes, this guy is an actual pedophile, but by going after him, we hurt more people. This is like that we shouldn't convict like black criminals because what about the racism or whatever? Like the real victim of Islamic terrorism is Muslims. Like again, just stupid. Okay, here are some regularly banned. Threatening to murder, true. That message does certainly exist. Went to work for 8chan, a site explicitly policy allowing. Okay, so what we just learned is that 8chan, or is that it's also 16chan that allowed discussions of pedophilia. As far as the rest of this, yeah, okay. And he admitted this. Like this part, he just covered in the video we watched that. Yeah, it got spammed on 8chan. Okay. And now we get to Maddie, which is him doing the show. Some of his person streams still hold up, I think, even the ones that are out of date. Because like more stuff has happened. There's a couple of them that are really good. I would say that my favorite Maddie ever is the Deagle Nation one. And the reason why that one's my favorite is because first of all, it's a crazy story. And it's a story that feels like it was written like intentionally, not just happened, but it is real. And he was like close enough to the topic that he is like a character in the story itself, which I think is good. As far as like how it is now, like I said, I really haven't listened to it in a couple of years now because it just kind of became, I don't know. I just don't think he's a very good like streamer when it comes to covering contemporary stuff, like as it's happening. Yeah. So this is kind of what Ken Chadwick, I think, was talking about, is this sort of collision between the Maddie audience and the forum, because obviously the forum doesn't give a fuck about the N-word. I don't give a fuck about the N-word. The only reason I'm not screaming the N-word right now is because we're on YouTube, but not really. But my point is I don't care. But obviously the Maddie audience does because it's a lot more normie. And, you know, that's kind of the trade you do, right? Is that if you have a show that becomes, like, actually not mainstream, none of this is mainstream, but more mainstream than like anything he was involved with before, you do kind of become audience captured a little bit. Channing Krieger. Oh, is this the Sam Hyde interview? Yeah. This is kind of a funny call just because I don't know. Like the stuff with Sam, that could be a whole nother fucking stream, is all the claims about Sam. Personally, I like Sam Hyde. I think he's funny. And I think that a lot of the claim, like, there's some of it that is more reliable than others. The problem is that the messengers for all of it are so, like, unreliable and so clearly mentally ill that it discredits what would otherwise be some, like, compelling evidence. Him being an e-celebrity, wars with e-celebs, I mean, this is all just, like, drama. This is all fine. This is what he should be doing, right? I don't have a problem with that. Fundraisers. Yeah, I know this is really controversial for people, is him asking for money. I don't really have a problem with people making money on the internet. I'm not like PPP used to be, where it's like no one should be. I do believe people should be doing it for fun. You shouldn't take it too seriously, but I also don't mind them making money. And the website does cost money to run, and people do like it. So they should be able to give money. The question comes, that's like, there's much cope I'll do about it. Getting into the more controversial aspects of it, he just did a fundraiser the other day where to try to get 1 year's worth of costs. And I think it was like $12K. Aristotle would. Well, I could talk a lot about Aristotle. He set a number for the cost, and he got more than that number, and he's going to keep the money, I assume. That's kind of controversial. You don't, if you say that you're fundraising for something that's a distinct, like a set cost, a concrete cost, and then you get more than that and you don't give it back, it's like, it sets a bad precedent. It's something that right now isn't the end of the world, but could kind of develop into something that's a problem. As far as the coins, I actually liked the coin idea because it's at least something of value, like it's silver, like it's an investment. But there was kind of a disaster about this because of like getting the coins, and they were late and whatever. There's also the fact that he just did a legal fundraiser last year and got a shit ton of money, and there hasn't been a lot of documentation. Not a lot of documentation on how that money's been spent, is what I'm saying. The legal stuff. Because think about this. He's open about how much the forum costs to run for a year, which was the fundraiser he just did. But then for the legal fund stuff, and there's especially, this is my like legal brain thinking, unfortunately, but like with the Internet Preservation Society, did that get the money that was legally raised? Like the money, Sherman Man would disagree about the coins. I like silver. I think that it's good to get silver, and they were priced pretty well. The coins were. For what you were getting. I'll say that. Obviously, if you're actually trying to invest in silver, you don't do it through fucking lolcow coins, right? But I suspect those coins will actually go up in value because they're kind of rare, and there are like really autistic people who are going to want a Christian coin in 10 years. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't know. I have an eye for these things. There's a reason I buy all of Sam Hyde's shirt runs, and it's not because I want Sam Hyde to have my money. It's because all those shirts go 10x in value like 2 years later. And I have a collection of Sam Hyde shirts that if you were to add up all the money I paid for them, is probably like $300, and they're all like together they're worth probably $5,000 now. So there is but that's just me sounding like a high elf, right? Matthew Harden, Kiwi Farms lawyer, KF legal troubles. Yeah, the thing about Harden is it's like, beggars can't really be choosers, right? And the court case against Russell Greer. I actually, here's the thing. Once you've liberated yourself from sides thinking, where like, I use Kiwi Farms, so I need Josh to win all his court cases, and I need this to happen. Or I'm talking shit about the Kino Casino, so I have to defend everything Ralph does, or like pretend like he doesn't do funny stuff. Once you've liberated yourself of that mindset, and it's just funny thing happens, and you get to enjoy it, you start to get to the enlightened view that Josh having a court disaster with Russell Greer is a good thing. Okay? Not because it's good for Josh, not because it's even good for Russell Greer, but because it's entertaining. And seeing that whole like court, like the legal shit with both Melinda Scott and Russell Greer, I know that like Josh like spurgs out and is like, this is ruining it, but it's funny to watch. And seeing it go back and forth makes a better story in my view. And you know what? If one side loses the case or whatever, it's not my life. It's not like I will survive, right? But it's fun to watch. As far as, like I said, this website, this is one of the splinter ones. I don't think it's like super big or anything. And, you know, I'm not going to throw the 3 bots that watch this and say that I endorsed or whatever. But whoa. But I'm just glad that we get more forums and more shit happening. Is it actually verified Troy ounces? How do we know those aren't some silver alloy coins? They're not. I have 2. Like I said, I bought them because I suspect they're going to increase in value because of the infamous, because of the notoriety of the website, and they're real silver. I made sure of that. Okay. What do we got next? What is this? Oh, this is the quote from the beginning. This is what I was saying, how he's like defined his entire everything by trying to be the opposite of Lowtax. And there's definitely lessons to learn from Lowtax, but you can definitely go an extreme to the other end. Delegating responsibility for every part of the website under mini tyrants who created their own culturally independent fiefdoms. Haha. Does that sound familiar? I mean, that's basically what the beauty parlor is. Again, I don't really have a problem with it. I think that let him fight, right? But all right, so Ralph had a memorial stream for his dearly departed mother, and as Ralph does, he made sure it was as entertaining as possible. And you know, I got to give it to the king, man. Ralph always puts the audience first, like for real. Like I'm not even kidding when I say that. He puts the audience first, and it's sort of like when I said that once you're kind of liberated from the sides thinking, you can start to appreciate. You don't need to cope for why Russell Greer shouldn't win the lawsuit, or why it's bad for you, or get a win or whatever. You don't need to cope for why, like, we need to save Ralph's soul. It's just this. It's just pop. You take the pill. You got the full stack, and you go in.
Job, maybe because they don't want a job. Have you ever considered that it's, you know, a scam to live in the fucking...
True. Having a job and moving out of your mom's basement is literally a Jewish plot. Sorry, high elf plot.
Is the world. Have you ever considered that? Why doesn't so-and-so get a job? Nigger, I don't want a job. That's why, you fucking dumb fuck. This is my job.
True. As long as, I mean, honestly, if he can support himself, why would he get a regular job?
Why doesn't so-and-so get a...
They were just Tic Tacs. Why would you want them to be Tic Tacs, dude? This is what I mean. Like, this is the sides thinking, is that you have to come up with an excuse for the less entertaining option. If we're just the audience here and we just want a good show, why wouldn't we always try to go for the most entertaining option? The most entertaining option is that Ralph took 30 bars of Xannies to celebrate his mother.
A job? Why don't they get a job? Because they don't want a fucking job, you dumb motherfucker.
I'll say this about jobs. If you can find a way to make money and be financially independent without, like, if you can find a way to be in this world but not of this world, then you should take it.
Fuck working for a living. This is the most amount of work I want to do for a living. Getting fucked up, booking guests, talking to David Duke, talking to fucking like every other dissident. I don't want to do anything else. Oh, why don't you get a job? Why don't you work at Target? Why don't you do this? Why don't you, work at, some accounting firm? Why don't you fucking blow your fucking brains out, you cocksucking son of a bitch?
This is like a Siege where it's like kill your mailman. It's like, if anyone asks you to get a job, just immediately kill them.
No, don't take his coat. No, don't take his coat. he's wrong. He's so fucking wrong. Don't take his code. Merch knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you work at Walmart? Why don't you work at a bank? Why don't you work at a fucking convenience store? Cause nigger, I'd rather fucking die. That's why. I'd rather fucking die than work in any of those fucking places, you fucking cocksucker. That's why, nigger. That's why.
Yep. I mean, how can you even argue with that? Ralph knows. You see, this is one of the most endearing things about Ralph, is that for all of his misconduct, for all of his stuff, Ralph knows exactly what he is and exactly what he wants. And that's moksha. Moksha. What's the Buddhist term? That's self-liberation. That's self-actualization.
I don't know. I mean, maybe we can't.
Damn. Look at that toss.
Like,
What do you think he's... I mean, it's a bottle, I guess.
Maybe we can't. Maybe we fucking can't.
He just slew a Zanny demon.
Maybe we fucking can't. I don't know.
Exactly. He's trying to get to Nirvana. That's my favorite movie of all time, The Thin Red Line. Terrence Malick's my favorite director.
Oh, here we go. Here's a picture of my dick right here.
Here's a picture of my dick right here. Gay love.
Here's a picture of my dick right here.
How about that, gay logs?
You can tell me what you think about that.
Yeah. What you think about that, gay logs? My dick.
And if you measure up, how about
You
that?
measure up. Unfortunately, if I recall correctly, this file was like, he's a hack, but no, he's not a hack. Terrence Malick is based. He's a literally PhD in philosophy, dude.
That's not even the best picture of my dick. Actually, that's kind of like a shiesty picture of my dick. Oh, this is a better picture, actually.
Better than Martin Scorsese, who stole his entire style from French realism and admits it.
So here goes a better picture of my dick.
Yeah, the Ralph Lecoq A-log humiliation ritual. It is kind of funny because it's like, you know, you could think of all of these ways to cope yourself. Like if you're Ralph, you could think of all these ways to cope yourself as an argument against some of the stuff people threw at Ralph. Or you could just post a picture of your dick and just be like, what you gonna do? Like, I win.
So tell me if you measure up. That's not AI, nigga. That's me. So
yeah, well, he has more than a fancy degree. He has a fancy degree and was able to turn it into art, which is more than what most people with degrees do. What most people do with degrees is they get filtered into teaching, which is because they're stupid and incompetent. But what Terrence did is so the best way to send a message philosophically or anything, it's not by writing a manifesto. It's not by arguing with people. It's through abstraction. It's through storytelling. And if you can turn your philosophy into like a primordial form of like storytelling, that is how you actually convince people of things. And every single Terrence Malick movie has the same thesis. Every single one has the same thesis, which is that the vicissitudes and struggle of man fall away compared to the greatness of God. Yes, 30 minutes of grass blowing in the wind, Kino. Wheat field, 30 minutes of wheat field, Kino. Exactly. Because God designed that grass, that field of grass blowing in the wind since the beginning of the fucking universe. And it is so much greater and more beautiful than whatever struggles that is occurring between the human characters of the movie. The only New World, like in New World, is also a great movie.
tell me if you measure up. And if you don't, it's no big deal. I'm just saying, like, my dick and my nose, thank God they didn't break my nose.
My dick and my nose, that's all you need.
And my blue eyes, like, those are the only things.
My dick, my nose, and my blue eyes.
I have going for me.
Oh, no, you got more than that going for you, Ralph. Come on. I don't know what this is on his face. I don't really want to know. But this was the next day. And okay, so then that led to this whole thing over Idubbbz. So Idubbbz has a thread on Kiwi Farms. I haven't gone through it all. Maybe I will someday. I was tempted to call into this stream on Ralph Killstream and give the anti-Idubbbz argument, but I wasn't. There's a few reasons I didn't. Number one, I didn't because me and my friend were about to watch Bad Lieutenant Protocol New Orleans, and so we were having a drink, and I don't want to do any of this like intoxicated. And number two, I had not gone through the thread recently, so I just didn't have the receipts, right? But if I had been prepared, I could have gone in there, and it would have been Kino. Regardless of how it would have gone, it would have been Kino. But basically, there was a chat revolt because Idubbbz, the claim is that he's a gay furry. Of course, he disavows it here. The problem is there's all these freaking screenshots. There's all this shit. And Ralph knows, like, Idubbbz? Yeah, exactly. And Ralph knows all this stuff. He plays dumb because he needs to keep Idubbbz for the money and to be his, like, top guy and stuff. I get why he like, copes about Idubbbz, but it's tough. It's tough. Well, all you would need to get Ralph, and it's funny because what the guy in the chat was trying to do was just get Ralph to open the thread because all the pictures are just right there of him being a gay furry. And that's all you would need Ralph to do is to on stream have seen any of the screenshots, and then that would be the victory condition. Okay, I loved this response. When I first heard this, I was like, this is the funniest shit I've ever heard because first of all, so this is after the Sanders stream. This is like the next morning after, he's trying to like explain himself for doing a memorial for his mother where he gets Xanned out and passes out, right? So, and honestly, and he gives exactly the response he should have, which is that, yeah, it was a degenerate shit show. You think you can avoid aggroing a pilled up? No, but that's what you want. You want to, like, the goal is entertainment. The goal is a screaming match. The goal is IBS. The goal is a shit show. Okay? Yes, dog analyzing the kill stream. Think Ralph is... Anyway, so this is a funny response because it's just like, he basically just says, yeah, I wasn't pretending to be retarded. I just wanted to make a funny show. And he says he had a planned relapse, which I think is just a hilarious phrase, a planned relapse. Aren't all relapses, unless you get drugged by someone at a bar, aren't all relapses planned because you have to make a decision to take the drink or whatever? And the fact that he combines that cope with also, I'm going to my son's 4th birthday. Please buy him a gift. It's like, don't you want these to be in different videos, right? But Ralph, it's funny.
Did you go on a week-long gonzo live? So... you might ask yourself, Ralph, why did you go on a week-long gonzo live experience? And we had a guest here.
So he uses, I talked about this in the other one, he uses gonzo, like gonzo journalism. The problem is gonzo journalism, you have to actually go out and like find stuff that no one would find otherwise, whether it be like weird niche communities or parts of the city or whatever. It's not sitting in the Idubbbz shack, like getting, but whatever.
whatever. But it was mostly just me. Doing my thing.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Well, I made a lot of money.
True.
That's one reason.
Yep.
So
there you go. And this is what I mean. It's like, it's not I was pretending to be retarded. It's just, yeah, I make money when I do a giant shit show, and it worked.
I extracted money from some people, like to see me off the chain. My regular audience. Most people just like to see me do regular shows.
Now that's not true. I think most people like to see you off the chain. And you can tell this by the viewer numbers, right? Because when he's doing some like falls asleep to CNN. Yeah, he means Gonzo lyric. No, don't invoke his name, or else then Ralph's gonna die in a gulag. Anyway, if you watch his streams where he's like falling asleep to CNN or whatever, not falling asleep, but just like covering politics or whatever, like no one watches it, but when he's off the chain, everyone does, because that is what people want to see, because it's Kino.
But I extracted a ton of money from a lot of people who hate me, and basically made up for all the money I wasted in Tijuana and Colombia. And so next week, it's back to business. We have Dr. Duke on Tuesday.
Dr. Duke.
We have Adam King on Wednesday.
What the fuck is David Duke even doing these days? When was the last time David Duke did anything?
I'm working on the rest of the week. I called it a planned relapse on I don't know if it's yesterday or day before, but that's exactly what it was. People making false allegations about me doing this, that, and the other. I'm sure if that actually does come to pass.
He's referring to the fact that he showed, and to be fair, it was a mistake, right? He showed the revenge porn 3 times on stream, which is a big mistake. I agree with him. I don't think there's going to be some fucking SWAT arresting him when he goes to visit the son. I don't know. You know what's really funny is, like, honestly, if you put it up, like, side by side, and you're not doing any kind of work or a narrative, Ralph literally has a better court record than Nick Rekieta as far as, like, fighting cases. So,
It'll be adjudicated in the courts in my favor, as that's what usually occurs. But, I am looking forward to my son's 4th birthday this weekend. I'm not concerned about any type of, SWAT teams rolling down. I'm going to cross the border. Just so easy, just easy peasy. And,
just easy peasy. I mean, the problem is that you just told a story the other day about, like, you had to go on, like, the exodus of the Guns to get over the border to San Diego.
I thought about putting out a wish list if anybody wanted to give something, but honestly, I made a good amount of money this last week, and so I think I could do that. If you want me to do that, let me know. My mother, I said this on Twitter, she would be both appalled and amazed at the show yesterday. And we didn't get to do the Mexican
I
feast.
believe that, honestly, because it sounds like Ralph's mom had an eye for entertainment.
Later tonight, I'll do the Mexican feast. I don't know. But
I still don't know what he meant by Mexican feast. Does anyone know what he meant by Mexican feast? Is it just drink tequila and eat a torta, or what?
Even from the haters, I'm just built different, guys.
True.
If
true. He is built different.
I would have been dead a long time ago.
True.
I would have folded a long time ago. I would have quit this gig. And I haven't. And I'm still here. And, it's funny because, like, I could do what I did this past week, like, every single week and make, I don't even know, $500,000 a year probably. But,
sure,
there's only so many mileages left on the old Ralpha ticker here, getting close to 40. You don't want to test it too much, but that was all planned. That
was all planned.
Was not a slip. That was a dive. Is what I did. I took a dive because I knew it would work. And it did. And I apologize to any of the regular fans who were disappointed in seeing that. But I knew it would work, guys. I knew it would work. I knew I would make up for, what I had wasted. And so, do I regret it? No, I don't.
Based.
And happy 4th birthday upcoming to my son, Alex.
Do I regret having a massive relapse in 6 days worth of pill streams? No. Anyway, happy birthday to my son.
Xander, if anything else comes out of whatever nonsense is coming out of California, I'll deal with that too. But
if the Vickers actually try to get him arrested and going to his 4th birthday, they will have confirmed for the billionth time that they are worse than anything anyone accuses Ralph of.
But
imagine doing that to, like, a 4-year-old, that they have to see their dad get arrested in front of them. Because of this bullshit. Like, fuck the Vickers.
Just thank you so much for being so supportive. RIP to my mother, 4 years yesterday. I wrote one of the best posts I think I've ever written in my life about her. And, the show itself was crazy, for sure. But I love her. I miss her every day. I wish I could talk to her now. And she would probably have a few choice words, but she would also be amazed, like I said. And I'm amazed every day that I'm able to do this for a living. David Duke on Tuesday, Adam King on Wednesday.
Definitely. No, Adolf is not his friend. So, yeah, this. He also said that he was thinking about moving to California. I replied to this on Twitter that to be closer to, if he can afford it, if he really does have, like, more money than people think, which is possible, like, that's been shown before, being near his son should be the priority. Now, the problem with California is that you're either living in the Hyperborea or the sixth circle of hell. There's no middle class in California. And so if he wants to live somewhere nice, he's probably going to have to live with a whole bunch of people or like literally in a studio. And he mentions somewhere else, I think it was on Twitter or something, that he has like a friend or he has someone, he has some connection in Southern California that he might be living, be living with. And if that person, and if that's true, if he goes and moves in with someone, one of two things is going to happen. Either slowly but surely he will grind down that relationship through like intoxicated fights and stuff, and there will be like a move out arc, which is, that might be entertaining, I don't know. Or the most keynote option is the guy he's moving in with is an addict too. And then that's when the real fun begins. Because addicts enable each other to do crazier and crazier shit. And he's going to be streaming as much as he usually does, and some of that's going to be on camera, and it might be really, really, really entertaining. You should move in with Josh? Well, yeah, I mean, if we were the script writers, if we're like Christoph writing the Truman Show, right? Yeah, that's what I would write too. But unfortunately, Ralph is one of the few characters that doesn't get scripted. He's just himself. He's like I said in the Oblivion stream, Ralph is the hero with 1,000 faces. Okay? He's the hero. Joseph Campbell's the hero's journey, and he sticks to exactly that arc. And that's why I know like he's not going to just die. Like when the whole Ralph dead arc, I knew he wasn't dead. I said that in my stream. It was like the first stream I did. I said he's not dead because we have not reached the apotheosis stage of the hero's journey yet. And yeah, if you know, he's following his own script, but yeah, it would be cool if he lived with Josh. That would be really funny, at least. Okay, moving on to Idubbbz wife shit. So there was another blind item. I explained what Crazy Days and Nights were before. To be fair, Ent lawyer, he has a good record on here, but he also is not an entertainment lawyer. Starting to sound like anal. Now, yeah, well, the difference is I don't talk to Ralph behind this. I don't interfere. I don't talk to Ralph behind the scenes. Because you can't write for him. You can't write for him. This guy was not actually an entertainment lawyer, but he does get things more right than not. Anyway, so one of the reasons the Jean's YouTuber, which is Denims, and she's called Denims because her name is Jean, decided not to sue a fellow YouTuber. This was, if you recall my video where she did I was merely pretending to be retarded social experiment, saying she was going to sue and then not. Decided not to sue a fellow YouTuber because she didn't want her books looked at. Yeah, I totally believe that. And that makes her retracting it even funnier because it means that she can't even think far enough ahead to threaten the lawsuit and then realize 2 days later, wait a minute, I'm committing tax fraud. Maybe I shouldn't do that, right? Or her relationship with the significant other of the police YouTuber examined too closely. So this is claiming that Anissa is having some kind of like Keemstar-esque threesome only girls type cheating thing. I saw some posts in the Anissa thread saying that they don't believe this because Anissa would never, like, Anissa hates women, which is true. I really do think because like she sees them as like competitors, right? And most of them are better than her in every way. So like she would hate that, but she also might just do it because she's insane and wants to like humiliate Idubbbz more. So there's this. And she got in, she's like off the chain, like fighting with Ethan. And there's one very particular tweet here that she made that I thought was hilarious when she says, this is to the accusation that she writes the content cops, is Ian was too nice in his content comp. Trust me, if I was pulling the strings, it would have looked a lot different. No mercy for creepy misogynistic losers who can't handle criticism. And this is so funny because she somehow managed to find a way to write this tweet to imply that the content cop is bad. Like she's shitting on her own husband here. She's basically saying I would have done it better. So even though like their whole position is that it was justified and it's actually a good video, she managed to just shit on her own video, like her own side, like her own video, basically saying, yeah, it was like it pulled punches and wasn't so good. It's also just so funny that she's calling Ethan the High Elf a incel when there's only one side here that's actually produced children. Like you cannot be denied that Ethan has had sex, not just because he has a wife, but because there's the product of a reproductive action, if like 3 of them, right? Whereas there is no proof that Ian's ever had sex because they don't have kids because they're childless like nihilists. There's some clips from here. This is from like their Cope cast that they did after they just did like a couple days ago.
Also, I just want to say, like, we don't regret it.
I like how she speaks for him. She's like, yeah, looks over. We don't regret it. Looks at him, smiles. It's like, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just want to make that very clear. Like, this stepping away from the company is not because we regret what we've done.
Why would you do it? If you did not do damage to this, then why would you step away? If that was true that they hadn't done any damage, then they wouldn't. Then stepping away would be what does the damage, right?
Needed to do what we did. I'm very proud of what
I'm sure you are.
You've done. I'm very
proud of what you've done. You notice how like she's so good at like framing everything so that all the good stuff was her and all the bad stuff was him. So it's like, I'm proud. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm proud of what you did that we all know is bad, right?
very proud of,
I am too.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. Cope, let's hear.
I'm the happiest I've ever been. I know people are like,
you look like it.
Cope, but I
they know.
Truly am genuinely the happiest I've ever been in my life right now. I feel so freed. Just the
Josh Little drip stuff. Yeah, so thank you for reminding me about that. So that wasn't in the thread, but for someone who uses the website and has seen the interactions and stuff, there's like 3 theories, right? Theory number 1, Little Drip is Josh's EGF. Okay? Possible. Probably the most possible. Because they're very conspicuous in the way that they don't interact with each other on the website. Like when one enters a thread, the other one kind of like, I'm not saying that they would always be in the same thread, but the way the separation between the two in on the website seems intentional. So that's theory number 1. Theory number 2 is that somehow like Little Drip is Josh. I've heard that one. I think that's like retarded and deranged. I don't like Josh. Like that would require too much planning for him. He's more than willing to just say stupid shit himself. Then there's the theory that like Little Drip is some kind of tranny or whatever. Maybe, I don't know. Some of Little Drip's posts are really cringe. Like really, really cringe. And I don't even mean just like the anti-men stuff. I expect that from that side of the website. Oh, whatever. I do think it's funny, the idea that there's like that there's sort of like, so there's like the toxic incel ideology stuff that essentially proposes that there's no symbiotic relationship between men and women, and that it's all like transactional, right? Which is bad and it's not constructive. But there is exactly that same thing on the other side too with women, right? Where it's like men are violent animals that cannot never be reasoned with, and that it's also extractive, which is like basically 2/3 of Little Drip's posts. And it is funny because the way like she posts, it reminds me of the girl from Blockland that he stalked. Like there's very clearly a through line. There's very clearly a type, like a through line. They're just Elaine. I mean, that would be crazy, man. Okay, so here's the reason why I don't think Elaine, and now I just said her name. I specifically avoided not saying it before because this person is she's not attractive, but is like a vampire, is like an energy vampire where they like suck attention whenever anyone talks about them. Because she's like severely mentally ill, right? I think that she's too mentally ill to keep the game up, to be real. Because if you've seen like the shit with Elaine where like the minute they're let into any space that is even somewhat gate kept, they like brag everywhere else about it and are like, oh, I'm in this terrorist group, I'm in this hacker group or whatever. Like there's no way that she would be able to keep the game up as Little Drip for as long as it has without having bragged to somebody or been tricked by someone in some Discord to admitting it. That's why I don't think it's Elaine. And I'm never going to talk about Elaine again on the streams. It's just cancer. It's fucking cancer. There's no fun to be had out of that whole fucking box. And so anyway, back to the Little Drip thing. It is funny because that is going to blow up sooner rather than later. Like that non-existent, like not official existent relationship. It's also possible there is no relationship. It's just that there's just weird kind of will they, won't they energy. But there's going to be a point where one of them, yes, that is why Godwin, yes, 100%. And I mean that literally. Like, yeah, that is why. anyway, the will they won't they thing with him. Like, there's going to come a point where one of them is going to say something that, for the other not to respond to upkeep their character, is going to cost too much. Essentially, no, ketamine is medicinal, bud. And dude, he's a baron. He's getting the good stuff. And it's either going to be Elaine says something, gets into a massive fight on the forums, like she already does, but like be super in the wrong, and then Josh has to either come in and defend it, or like do a moderation action because she's broken some rule. And if he does do it, then that'll like forever alienate her because she expects special treatment. Or he won't, or he won't do it, in which case it will throw more fuel in the fire, confirming that there is some kind of relationship, even if there isn't. So it's just sort of like a very slow car crash that's going to occur eventually. Or it'll be the other way. Like Josh has some spurg out where he says something like that she perceives as misogynistic or something, and then they get into like a public fight. Because I'm telling you, man, go look at the threads that they post in. I'm pretty sure that they intentionally try not to interact with each other because they don't want the like LARPing about whether they're a thing or not to get any worse. The problem with that is where there's smoke, there's fire, and people think it for a reason. People think, and it might not be because there is, but there's something. There's some weird kind of, there's some kind of weird relationship there.
The idea that like we don't have to be silent. The being silent was fucking it's like soul crushing.
Yeah, I didn't realize how important that was to me, and I think us in general is, feeling like we can't fucking like we have to, I don't know, like censor ourselves for the, for other people, for
constant.
But you do, it's so funny because they do censor themselves. It's just for the someone else now.
Constantly censoring ourselves.
Yeah. All right. What is the rest?
I'm ready to spread my wings in a different way. I'm like
you're ready to spread your legs.
Fully ready to just start cooking and baking. And
this is always what she does. Is whenever like it's like the pocket sand. It's Rusty Shackelford's pocket sand from King of the Hill. It's like whenever things are hard, she's just like throws out a picture of like the most worst baked cupcake ever. It's like, I'm gonna be a chef.
And I think I'm gonna take some. I'm gonna go to like a culinary program, and like I think it's so freeing. Like,
yeah, well, this is just every 6 months there's like a different identity, right?
None of it. It's really interesting that none of it, because back in the day it would have really upset me. I think like a combination of therapy and drugs. But even Ethan, like on his podcast, was talking about me putting stuff in your oatmeal or saying that I'm whatever he's saying.
Right.
Okay. So you don't even know what the claim is.
None of that bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Then why do you remember it? Why do you need? If it didn't bother you, this would not be a topic.
When I think about like hate videos or fucking just certain sides of the internet, I'm like, there ain't nothing to fucking do.
No, I know.
Like, I'm not gonna like pitch you like my train of logic and how I've arrived at what.
Yeah, I like how he assumes that what people want is a cope, like just another cope to explain it, and not just for you to change your behavior to be less retarded.
Oh, I thought they were going to say the war on drugs has been lost.
No,
sorry, we lost
it.
Sorry, we've lost.
That'd be great.
Whatever. If we're allowed to drink, I don't fucking care what the government has to say about drugs. That's my take.
I think they should just make all drugs legal.
Well,
yeah, well, they do in some places, and like Seattle, and look at that.
Like, once I learned that the withdrawal,
it's just so funny too, because like Seattle and especially Oregon did have like non-prosecution policies for pretty much all drugs, and it turned, obviously, like as you would expect, it turned it into like Walking Dead drug zombie collapse society downtown. But of course, despite the fact that they live in Seattle, they should have front row tickets to seeing why this doesn't work. They don't, because they have a nice house in the suburbs that's not really in Seattle. So it's like, yes, I'm going to posit a policy that will ruin a part of the city that I'm not in, and you should listen to me.
all from alcohol, like when you become an alcoholic, is like one of the most dangerous
Expert on alcoholism. what's so funny, and you know, I said before that I could do like a full 3-hour stream just covering like all of Anissa's bullshit in the background. I'm just gonna give one example of why there's so much. And it's because almost everything she says is like immediately, like I said, she is a low IQ narcissist. So she does all the scheming and lies of a narcissist, but with low IQ. So they're just immediately sussed out and recognized. She is the female boogie, as strange as that sounds. So here's just quintessential example. This is her talking about their friendship with Ethan. We talked like once a year at best. They didn't even know we lived in Seattle. Boom, immediately just...
So, how you guys doing? I know you moved to Seattle.
Like, nice, great. It's like, why even... Whatever. This is her, like, a sneak diss, where she's like, my husband is so balanced that he made a worse video. Great. All right, the last thing. This Carl Jobs stuff. So... what's fun? So Billy has finally seen some of the work that's been on the thread here. This is a post is from today, but this actual account was found actually a couple weeks ago. It's just now getting reported on again that Carl Jobs, you know, apropos of nothing in his Discord is talking about coming in bathtubs and the porn he likes and sharing his Pornhub account like it's fucking LinkedIn, like hook up with me on Pornhub, and how he has 4 terabytes of pornography and stuff. And it's like, this is why I didn't even explain in my Billy Mitchell Jobs video. I don't even need to explain the history between these guys. I don't need to explain like Billy Mitchell cheating. I don't need to explain Carl Jobs and all of his investigations, because there's just stuff like this where you look at it and it's like, whose side are you really going to be on here? The guy with 4 terabytes of porn, or the guy who the guy who just looking at him, you're like, this guy's a king with his American flag tie, right? Who just sells his hot sauce, the humble hot sauce merchant, okay? So this like Pornhub account is literally like 10 years old, has like 1 trillion videos watched. It's just absolutely like mega gooner, very virginal. Like, you know, this guy's married and he's a porn addict. What does that tell you? Okay. You know, it's like I said, Ethan has proof that he's had reproductive intercourse with his wife. I guess Carl does too, because he has a son that he literally called Maximus when his last name is Wong. So it's Maximus Wong. This is the guy. You think this is the good guy? No, okay. And the other thing he did, which is like just mega stupid, is he decided to... Here it is. He like talks about shit that you would only ever talk about with your lawyer. Like people who have a legal obligation to not leak your shit. He just talks about it on his Discord as it's happening. And so look, he talks about how he's basically going to try to get out of paying the settlement that he lost, because he's moving assets around. He moved his like house and his company. He's an employee for his company, which is the YouTube channel that his mom is the director, or his wife is the director. And I'll tell you this, you must have literally never, like, this is the kind of shit you say when you haven't even typed the word bankruptcy into the Google search and read the first result. Because I understand it's Australia, so it might not be exactly the same as in America, but in America, the way bankruptcy works is when you declare bankruptcy, the court hires a lawyer called a trustee. And the purpose of the trustee is essentially to get on your ass and research all your shit, get all of your paperwork, get all of your financial information, and make sure everything's accounted for. And then they get like a percentage of the bankruptcy, right? And that's their whole job, is to make sure that like this doesn't work. And there's a simple rule that like just blows all this out of the water, at least in America, which is that any property transfer, any equity transfer within 5 years of a bankruptcy is investigated and counts as yours. So if a year before I go bankrupt, I give my boat to my wife, or, you know, how about my YouTube channel to my wife, that's still considered your asset because it was within 5 years of a bankruptcy. So like, this is just ridiculous. And so he puts this in his server that he knows is getting leaked, because this is week 2 of his whole Discord being leaked, right? And so then this guy, Luss, reports on it in one of his videos. And to be clear, this guy also appears to be severely mentally ill. He's like a former lawyer, but if you like his video, his channel description just screams like, this is like a Chris Chan type. It's like very hyper specific and autistic. I mean, good for him that he retired at 36. That's cool, whatever. But like, just his entire life story, like in exact detail, and these they, them, theirs. So, but whatever, man. If this guy's a weirdo, he doesn't deserve to have his channel flagged down, which is exactly what Carl Carl threatened to do, because this guy's been covering Carl, like all this stuff. He made a video where basically he talked about these leaks and is like, basically just said everything I just said, but better, because he's actually like a practicing lawyer, right? And explain like why it won't work, right? And so then Carl says, I'm gonna report him to YouTube. He's a flag it. He's gonna flag him down. You'd think this guy would know that never works. This guy's been on the internet. He's seen like this happen over and over and over again. Whoever becomes a flag it always loses. And you know, for as like kind of cringe and mentally ill as this guy is, he kind of has a pretty based response here where he's just like, fuck you.
Info for your lawyer. Like, Carl doesn't get it, man. Like, he thinks you guys are stupid. He thinks you guys are stupid. He thinks I don't have access to this shit. Right?
He's referring to the fact that all he did was just look up the public records for Carl's business, which is all it took. Like, this is publicly accessible information. And, you know, there's a theory that's being floated that essentially Carl intentionally said this stupid shit on his server, hoping someone would report on it so that he could flag them. So he's like putting out fake info to like flag people. If there ends up being proof of that, dude, this guy thought that his shit was getting rocked because of lying about the Billy Mitchell lawsuit and stuff. That's going to be apocalyptic, because that's like fucking fraud, like straight up fraud.
He doesn't think I have access to
like specifically, it would be a claim of tortious interference. If you are putting out fake info so someone reports on it so that you can flag them and interfere with their ability to make money.
Court document. Look, man, I'm just going to say this. Carl, if this channel goes down, it is because of Carl Jobs. It is because of Carl Jobs. If this channel is deleted. Billy did not try to delete Carl's channel.
Exactly. Everybody says Billy's this meanie because he sues people who say shit. Whatever, and he got Apollo Legend to take down one video. Well, now Carl's trying to take down this guy's whole fucking channel on potentially false info he himself intentionally leaked.
Remember the whole idea of why Billy is, quote, so evil is that Apollo Legend had to take down some of his videos. Mother effer, you are trying to take down my entire channel, Carl. Carl, do you not see what you've become? I was a huge fan of yours, Carl. Do you not see what the whole issue that Carl was saying, why Billy Mitchell is so bad of a guy and so on, about Apollo Legend, was focused on one item. It was focused on the fact that Apollo Legend had to take down videos about Billy Mitchell. Mother effer, this guy's trying to take down my whole channel. Carl has become what he hated most, but even worse than that. Carl won't even show. I'm live right now, Carl. The reason I went live early is because I know you're active on your Discord.
Based.
I know you are currently active on your Discord. Even a few moments ago when I went live, you were active on your Discord. I can prove it here. Carl says, so he says this. To accuse me intentionally doing is just ironically defamation.
Yeah. To accuse me so this is the claim that he might have leaked it intentionally.
I won't take action on it given the fact I've accused others of crimes before, too. However, at least in this regard, I didn't fabricate shit out of my ass. Literally, I read his own statements.
Yeah, that's literally all he did was read his Discord messages.
All I did, and then I gave commentary on these statements. He is saying he is going to sue me for defamation. But he doesn't have the money. I guess he's so generous, he's not going to sue me for defamation. Look, dude, I mean, at the end of the day, you got no money, Carl Jobs. You are in a really vulnerable position. If somebody does sue you, i.e. me or Gerard, how are you going to afford a lawyer? You're mother effing in bankruptcy court right now. And so instead, because this is how Carl works, right? I can sue you, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to talk about targeted harassment by YouTube standards.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to be a flag it. Basically, I don't want this to go to court because I'd lose, because there would actually be a true, there would be like discovery, there would be a true investigation into the truth of the claims. So I'm just going to abuse YouTube's shitty flagging system and send my weird fans that are subscribed to my 10 billion post Pornhub account to flag it down. And, you know, like, okay, I get it. This guy is like autistic. Well, honestly, him being autistic is his best attribute, right? Because the autism is the lubrication of the sector. But this guy's kind of like cringe and he's kind of a weirdo. But like, he's completely in the right here. Getting flagged is stupid. He's making his making his shit. And
yeah, give me the name of the hotel you stayed at, Billy Mitchell.
Mega Gay by Carl.
The Airbnb. It might be, you know, a week into, right? He literally tried to bait me into lying about the completionist suing him. Like, this is why, like, can you read this, guys? Like, I do not know how this man can live at night. Like, I do not know what evidence he has of defamation.
Evidence.
But he says he can win.
Photographic evidence.
But because he's such a nice guy, Carl Idubbbz is a nice guy, he's not going to take action, given the fact I've accused others of crimes before, too. However, at least in that regard, I didn't fabricate shit out of my ass. Actually, Carl, the court where you live in found out you did fabricate the shit out of your ass. Like, if this channel goes down, I want every one of you guys to know who did it. It was Carl Idubbbz. It was Carl Idubbbz. Yes, he's claimed this multiple times. If you go on the Discord channel, I have some more screenshots. He's claiming I targeted, harassed him. A man who has done far, far worse to Billy Mitchell and to Gerard. He is claiming targeted harassment because he doesn't like my videos. Let's see. No where's I remember you're a victim of misinformation. What an effort. You're a victim of the misinformation you said, you idiot. You're a victim of misinformation, which breeds cyberbullying. What do you think you've been doing this whole time to Billy Mitchell? What the hell do you think you've been doing this entire time to Billy Mitchell? You are a victim of misinformation, which breeds cyberbullies. What? This is Carl Idubbbz, my dude. Okay, and again, like I said, if our video goes down, if my channel goes down, this is Carl Idubbbz, 100% Carl Idubbbz doing. He says right here, bankrupt, however, what Lust does constitutes, I'm so mad right now, harassment by YouTube standards. Let's see. What do you mean? Harassment by YouTube standards. I have tax debt also. What do you mean? Okay, so I'm trying to find the thing right now. Okay, here. Okay, so this is a screenshot. I will report him to YouTube. I will speak to my YouTube partner. I will report you to YouTube. Okay. Like, what in the world is happening? You know, like, a man who has ruined at least 2 people's lives, and then there's also the expert witness's lives, is going to report me for harassment to YouTube, when all I have been doing is covering him as neutral as possible. Yes, Carl is silencing the critics. Isn't this like the Logan Paul versus CoffeeZilla? What an effort. Like, any time a YouTuber has tried to silence a critic, it has gone incredibly wrong, Carl. You should know this. You are a YouTuber. I don't know what the hell AI is telling you right now, but holy shit, Carl, you should know what you just stepped into.
Yeah, and I completely agree. You never win. With flaggets, you lose. Like, you're never gonna win. Because even if you get it successful, even if you craft some fucking narrative, nobody likes it when you take people down just for talking about you. So I think the Carl stuff's gonna get worse before it gets better. I think that most of the bankruptcy stuff's gonna come out because it's gonna be made public because there's a public interest now, and it's just gonna get worse. Yeah, to Carl Idubbbz speedrunning Lowtax data. Well, okay, there's an argument to be made that Carl Idubbbz actually has the fastest growing thread in Kiwi Farms history. Some guy was trying to do the math about that in the theory, or in the thread, because he went from not having a thread to like 200 pages in a day or something like that. So maybe he'll finally get a record that is not him beating Goldeneye and being pat on the head by his wife and staring at the floor. But yeah, that's all I had for today. Sorry that this is the second stream that I'm not playing a game. I honestly, people were asking for Morrowind. I played Morrowind a lot. I would totally play Morrowind. I might get some OpenMW going or something like that, or I could go back to Medieval 2. But I promise I will definitely go back and spend at least an hour playing a game next stream. Also, I'm still looking into doing call-ins because I want to do "Will Fight Anyone About Anything" type segments.